We're actually live. And David's here right off the bat here. I'm going to add David to the stage. Welcome, everybody. And thank you ever so much for coming along to this live. I'm just still getting used to this whole system. So I'm going to add David onto the stage. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming along. And add David onto the stage. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming along. I can hear myself. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming along. I can hear myself. There's something to do with I don't know. I've just added David. So I've just put you on mute, David, because I'm not really sure how that works. How do I stop it coming back out of the speaker? Oh, is it to do with headphones? Do you have any headphones at all? I don't know. Can anybody give me some advice about that? Hi, Scott. Hi, everybody in the chat. Because if I don't know, can anybody give me some advice about that? Hi, Scott. Hi, everybody in the chat.
I don't know. Somebody's telling me.
Can anybody give me some advice about that? Hi, Scott. Hi, everybody in the chat.
I don't know. Somebody's telling me.
Yeah, it unfortunately, I don't know what to do about that. Can anybody technical help with that, please? I don't know if you've got any. And there's Mervyn there. I'm going to add Mervyn now and see. I'm just going to try out David to see if it happens the same with Mervyn, or is it something to do with. Hi, Mervyn. How are you doing there?
Yeah, good. Thanks. You?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. So, David, it hasn't happened with Mervyn. I don't know whether it's to do with headphones or something like that. Anybody in the chat could advise us? That would be great. Or Mervyn, do you know about it with all that kind of echoing going on?
Echoing, yeah. He needs to mute. Have you got the YouTube going as well?
Oh, it could be going on the YouTube, right? Is it going on the YouTube, David? Oh, so I see if I undo it now, it will get all. Oh, I think that's it. I think that's solved it, has it?
Yeah, I turned on the YouTube one as well. So
yeah, I tried on that the first time.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's all new to me. It's all pretty new to me as well. Thank you very much. And anybody else would like to? Hi, Chris. Hi, everybody there. It's a fantastic day. And I'm just going to put the link in again, if you'll bear with me. I'm not a professional broadcaster, so it's all very learning as I go, as you can obviously tell. But yeah, what an amazing day, isn't it? Really, I'm just having a coffee as it goes.
Yeah, I've been laughing at of course Crime Scene to Courtroom published it as well on their channel.
Oh really? They published the thing?
Yeah, no commentary from John.
No commentary.
No.
Oh, that's unusual.
Has it disappeared now? I'm looking for it. Oh yeah, here it is. No, it's on Crime Scene to Courtroom's channel. And I've just been having a laugh at all the comments on there, where people have been saying, asking John to correct the record and please go and correct Mr. Shu Lee. They just can't do it.
Yeah, have you seen that as well, David? Have you seen anything? What's going on?
I watched it this morning. Yeah. Well, you say, it's all been said, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's extraordinary that John from Crime Scene to Courtroom has now been tasked to take on the cream of the neonatology world all on his own. And, I'm sure he's going to manage it. He'll manage it.
And that's why I felt about those policemen who are, trying to set up new cases. And
yes.
That's going to. As I say, it's just not going to happen, is it? They know that they can't bullshit anything that's not true. They're going to be found out straight away, so they know. I mean, this is what, apart from hoping that it's not going to be years, which hopefully it won't be before Luce is out. The real thing is, what consequences are people going to have? Which people and all the rest of it, and.
Yes.
Other prosecutions, or if the police going to do? I don't know. That's the bit, and obviously they won't talk about any of that because that's that's not the issue at the moment, which is just to get her out.
That's absolutely right. What have you any thoughts about that, Mervyn? About what? And sorry, I'll just say quickly. Welcome to Jonathan Moore, who's also just joined us here as well, and welcome to everybody in the chat.
Yeah, I agree. The first thing is just get her out, and then you can talk about we can meet up and talk about possible retributions and things. But yeah, I mean everyone's really got to pay eventually. But yeah, the first thing is to concentrate on getting her out.
I mean, hi. I mean, some of the things I want to talk about is something that's not really been discussed yet. That's my main interest. So I'm a nurse, a retired nurse, and basically the NHS is privatised. They pretend it isn't, but it is. So imagine what would happen if you privatise the army. So McDonald's is running the guns, and then Tesco are supplying the shells, and all this sort of conflab. You end up with complete chaos, and that's basically what's happened to the NHS. It's people trying to get money. They're replacing. I mean, if you're a private business and you have employees, that's your biggest financial outlay. So if you're a private company coming in, first thing they do is get rid of all the qualified staff. I've experienced that. I worked for a couple of weeks on November 101. I don't know what they're doing now, but it used to be a trust, one whole trust, run by the NHS. And well trained, well staffed, and I was only beginning to be aware of this stuff. And I got there, and they cut the training down. So you've got this private company full of new clinical people who don't know what they're doing. They cut the training down by 2 weeks. People weren't prepared. People made mistakes, and then they lost their registration because they made mistakes. Whereas before the training was 2 months, or you had like bands 7s, 60s all over the place. Do you know what I mean? That's what it was like. You got well trained, and that's all. Well, in the area I worked in, mostly that was a little break because I've been in substance misuse for the last 20 years, and that's all privatised. And I've just seen complete cowboys taking over the service. And the main difference is, if you have less qualified staff, they're much more willing to do anything you tell them. There's much less kind of, I don't agree with this, or that's not right, or if you get rid of the senior staff. A lot of those guys were ex-users who were coming in. I could go on for. Should I stop? Because I could go on forever.
No, it's very interesting. We're not from a nursing perspective, and you've had all this experience of that. And
in substance misuse, you had tier 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically, prescribing services was tier 3, and tier 2 was like the charity. There's a charity sector. They'd hold your hand, pat on the back, and all that sort of stuff. And we would be giving out the scripts and doing all the clinical things. And you had the proper NHS stuff. You had like the partitions, the protection, all that stuff. So when they handed that over to basically the charities, all of a sudden, they took all that down. I had a case, my case, I went from 30 to 90. They changed the prescribing service, the way they did it. So 30% was wrong. There was punch-ups. It was just absolute pandemonium. And so when I first heard about Lucy, which wasn't that long ago actually, I said, this guy was I'm definitely guilty. That was terrible. I was immediately suspicious because I've seen it. I've seen where they cut staff, they put inexperienced people in, and the managers then blame all the clinical errors onto the clinicians. I've seen it. And this is NHS wide. As you know, Blair sold the NHS name, so the NHS is a private name now anyway. So that's why I started interested, and I was suspicious immediately. I didn't know, so then that's when I started looking into it and started, finding you and Carl and all the rest of it. So that's a bit that's not been mentioned, or been brought out really in all our discussions. Why it's happening? Why attitudes have changed? Because it's what's been imposed on it. I mean, when I trained, you had a real sense of belonging to something. I trained at the Royal Free in 87 to 90, and you had your nursing accommodation, you had a great canteen, and you had all these things. I was earning about £300 a month or something, but I was living in Hampstead. Work was a walk. I mean, I felt I belonged to something, and that grew as I became more senior. And when I came back, I worked in the States for a couple of years on an HIV unit, and so it was quite a long time. So about 2000, 95, 2000. I started wanting to do my RMN because I'm a general adult nurse, and because I always wanted to. That's what I wanted to be really, but I knew you could travel with the RGN, so that's why I did it. And all of a sudden, the atmosphere, all the accommodation would be sold off to private things. There was like the fire alarm would go off every 5 minutes because they fitted all them because they're terrified of losing property. So and you were looked on completely different. These were owners of estate property, and you were the person within that. Can you feel the difference between it being a hospital-owned place and all the rest of it? So anyway, that's my bit.
Thanks very much. No, that's a fantastic insight. And just with this particular case, we did hear that they had some very high band nurses and nurses of 25, 30 years experience. And one of them came out in one of the articles several months ago just saying it was all very well that Lucy Letby had trained to a higher level, but she didn't have that wide experience. And in fact, nobody did on that unit in terms of the nurses, because they got rid of them all in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Exactly, because you've got this idea of money. See, there's some harsh truths in medicine. If you haven't got the money, you don't provide the service. That's how it was. Because if you've got 3 doctors and 5 nurses or something, and we've got a unit, they would say, well, this is the amount of work we can handle. And I don't know what happens now, but you could go into a ward to take a shift and say, I'm not taking this ward because it's unsafe. You refuse to take responsibility for it. So yes. I can't believe that happens now, because there's so many that aren't running up to speed that nothing would work. But as I say, it's just bringing thinking money. The example I give of giving in the past is the difference between entrepreneurship, private enterprise, and social programs. Is that, say you, I don't mind me swearing, but imagine that you're making mobile phones, and you sell plastic mobile phones on a shop, in a desk. But this plastic mobile phone cover which you make is actually a dog shit. Okay, so you put it on there, and no one buys it because it's dog shit. Okay, but within caring, you can hide all types of misdemeanors, all types of inefficiencies, because the manager is about ticking boxes and making things fit. I mean, so that's why it works in capitalism, because you produce a product. It's very simple. You're either good at it, and because you're good at it, you excel. Whereas what they do in medicine is they just hide it. So they look like, when I first trained, the guy running the hospital was in his sandals and socks. He's got a sociology degree, and he's earning 40 grand, 50 grand a year, and he's happy doing what she's doing. Then it was that Blair era, wasn't it? Where all of a sudden you had to have these high professionals come in for $250,000 or some of these silly wages, but they don't do anything. They just pretend to do it.
Yes.
They don't do it. They just have a knack of making it look. All that time they're sacking all the band 5s and 6s because it's too expensive. Let's streamline. Let's be more efficient. And this is
absolutely.
It's affected me mentally loads. over the last 10 years.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I've lost at the end of it, I hardly feel capable of functioning because, no one would take any notice of what I said. Nobody cared. Then all of a sudden, I went to the last job just before I left, and the nurse there wanted to put up a sign to show how to give, because we were giving Pabrinex, which is this vitamin jab, for drinkers. Mark, just in case. So the vitamin jab, and it's essential in a alcohol detox. Anyway, so a lot of the new places just didn't give it. Why or whatever. And then so I'm at this place, and they're trying to. I keep wherever I go, I'm pushing the vitamins, always pushing the injection, the Parinexes for the drinkers. And so they were going to move towards it, and then they said, the qualified nurse said we have to put a chart up on the wall on where to give it, how to give a jab in the uterus. And I'm thinking, what are we teaching nurses nowadays? Do you know what I mean? I could do that at the end of the first year, beginning of the second year of my 3-year training. I was competent at giving those sort of injections. And to think you've got to tell qualified nurses where to do it, I mean, I don't know what all that was about or what's happening. Because I trained in the older hospital type,
Yeah, I'm just going to bring in. Well, I just want to say welcome to Jenny and welcome to Jonathan here, and somebody else. There's a maximum of 6 people apparently on this free streaming plan that I've got, because I only got the free one. But so there's 5 up here at the moment. I just wondered. Well, obviously Mervyn as well, and anybody who wants to respond to what David's been saying there.
Well, yeah, I think so. You're basically giving an argument about whether or not the privatising or public or having it being a public organisation, the NHS, and it is an ongoing problem. There are problems with both sides. Neither of them work properly. If it's it's a known problem that public organisations also leak money a lot more than private organisations. So I don't really know. It needs reform, but I don't know what the answer is.
It's not working now. It works much better then. So that's a fact, because I've seen it. And I've seen in the substance use service, I've seen people just perform functions that aren't doing anything, but it pretends that something's happening. It's when I was working before, I was busy. It was all manageable. It was within trained limits. There was someone around you trained enough to know what it was doing. It's a mess. What it is, from my viewpoint. So I can't really comment on whether. Yeah,
but you're attributing that to it being sort of, as you say, privatised now. But is there anything specifically why you're saying it's to do with the privatisation?
Right. So let's find some examples. Substance use is slightly different because there's now the commission bodies and all that. So you get these commissioners that set targets. This is all Marxist stuff, because the commissioners don't know, are clinicians. Most of them don't know. And then they're giving these down to managers which aren't clinicians and say, we have to achieve X amount of injections, we have to achieve this, and it doesn't matter what you think as a clinician.
Targets,
so
right.
The authority of the clinician is undermined, and they don't care because they will just want to keep their jobs, and they keep their job by fulfilling quotas, whether they make any sense or not to a clinician.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah. So I just want to bring in Jenny. Hi Jenny, and hi John.
Can you
like to see
hear me?
Yes, absolutely, clearly. Yeah, very well. Thank you.
It's the first time I've ever done this, so I'm an old lady.
That's great. Yeah, no, I'm very new to this as well. So welcome aboard.
Everything you mentioned, I'm here in America. Same stuff. Same stuff, different smell. If you get my drift. But and it's all about meeting quotas, statistics, and kind of we have all of ours are privatized except for the Veterans Administration. So it's the same kind of people, the same kind of stuff. They all want to have their job. They don't take pride in what they do. It's all about making the money, being the manager, getting the top, staying in the office. No Florence Nightingale stuff. Roll up your sleeves and take charge and pride in what your hospital is. It's all about you as the manager, the top of the thing, and the hell with us, the grunts that are doing the job, doing the hard work, and taking care of the patients, and they don't care. They want you out of there. I was forced out because I was too high a pay too. I was too high of a band nurse too. They wanted me out of there because I was too expensive. But also I had a big mouth, and I called out the beef, bull, you know what, and same thing. So it's same stuff, different smell. I totally understand.
Can I just ask if Jonathan would like to have a word about that, because you're coming from a GP's perspective, I believe, aren't you, Jonathan? As well as an expert witness. Can you hear us, Jonathan? I don't know if you've got Are you able to
and
hear us?
it's not the doctors that are the problem. It's the administration, who have never doesn't know what a bedpan is if it hit him in the face. The doctors were wonderful. I rarely had a problem with the doctors. It was management that I had the problem with.
Yeah, so we're getting some people in the chat saying that can we pull it back into a little bit more towards what happened today with the this is all good context and all fantastic background, but I think people want to also listen to what everyone's views is about the press conference today and where we think we are and what was achieved. So I
took notes.
Sorry,
I took
Jenny.
notes
Yeah.
on all the babies. Yeah, if you want to know, just let me know.
Yeah, please, Jenny. If you, I'd like to hear from. I'm not sure if Jonathan can hear me because he hasn't spoken yet. Are you able to hear Jonathan? Because we've had some technical.
Again.
Yeah, we've had some technical issues before with the setup there. So I just wanted to bring Jonathan because he hadn't spoken yet, and I'll put the link again in the chat. And if I could just ask. Well, Jenny, as from a nursing perspective, because you've been doing some deep dives on the various cases, haven't you? Could you give us some sense of were you surprised with some of the things that were said today and revealed?
Yes. Yeah. The thing that really got to me was the baby D with that, and I can't pronounce the bacteria name. There's another that's steno whatever.
I'm really having trouble hearing anything, so I'm sorry.
Oh dear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tricky. Somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say something to Jonathan. Somebody suggested, actually, Jonathan, because people would love to hear your contributions. Is it possible to just try it on audio and see if that makes a difference? I don't know if that will make a difference. So to lose the visuals. Not that we don't want to see you, but just if we can get over this technical hurdle somehow. I'm not sure how else we can do that. It's not very clear. I'm not sure what the issue is. Please go ahead. Sorry. It's the lag again, isn't it?
So it's
the lag.
Wonderful news today. I don't know.
I don't think it's working.
No, it's a bit tricky.
Do you want me to go ahead with the babies?
Yeah,
whatever you want me to. Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
I know.
Whatever you want to do.
No, absolutely, Jenny. Yeah.
The thing that bothered me was baby D. Bacteria, he said, and it had something to do with steno, and it's this long. It is a cousin to Pseudomonas, and just as bad as Pseudomonas. In fact, that medicine, that bacteria, and Pseudomonas are cousins, and they love each other. So they work and help each other out. So that baby. No, it wasn't baby D. I'm sorry, it was baby I. It was baby I. Anyhow, so that. The fact that they had cultured this other bacteria and didn't even know it, this is like a prime bacteria that a lot of people with nasty lung diseases, adults, it gets in there, it's a biofilm, it sticks in. Oh my God, this baby could have been cultured with that and Pseudomonas. God only knows they could have given it to that other babies too. Now the baby could have gotten it from any hospitalization, whatever, but the surveillance meaning is that when you get someone transferred to another thing, you want to you take a nose culture or cultures, and you see if they're bringing any bugs from anything else. The fact that they could have given this baby a sulfa or a Levaquin, a different antibiotic to deal with it. My God, I thought this baby had died from prematurity, but it's a bug that may or may not have been done. It just. Infectious disease. Where the heck? Another baby, I think it was G, the one with the gastroenteritis, that came from sewage. You know, it's a viral, all that stuff in the sewage, that's virus. It's just the filth. The filth and no one caring about the filth. And I thought it was bad. I had no idea. There was no way they would let a hospital like this, or it couldn't survive in America because it would be sued out of oblivion.
Yes.
And I'm sure it does happen, but Oh my God!
Yeah.
Thank God for lawyers in America. You know, they would multi-billion-dollar suits that would have happened.
So this is
Yes.
another thing that changed drastically because what you used to have is a domestic and a cleaning team that was for the ward that was employed by the hospital, and the domestic was considered part of the team, and felt involved, and she used to have tea with the sister in charge and afterwards, all this stuff. There was no private. Well, they had to have private cleaners who don't give a damn.
Yeah, we have private cleaners too, so
Yeah,
you
but-
got
right.
it. Yeah.
We haven't got the lawyers. So they've just been I know we've gone off on tangent a bit, but it is all based on kind of why Lucy ended up where she was.
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was very much a reluctance to push it up the chain, apart from that one email by that one consultant, and then that's been recanted. And I'm talking about. Well, I've got to be careful here because of the contempt of court issues.
Yeah.
We can't close down because we need the money. I mean, that just would never have, 20 years ago, that would never have entered anybody's head. They would have closed the unit down, moved the babies over to other places, they would have got the problem sorted, and they would have reopened it again because the money wouldn't have been an issue. And now everyone's money.
Thanks, David. We're getting some messages in the chat that the audio we really want to hear what you want to say, but it's kind of booming a little bit. Is there a way to turn down the amount of volume that's coming in? I don't know how that. I'm not a technical person, so I don't know how that works. People are saying they can hear you, but it's being distorted a bit. Is there a way to? Are you technical yourself? I don't know how it works, but
I'm technical in as much as I will just talk quieter because I'm getting excited.
I'm the same, and I was very excited a bit earlier, as you could tell, but I've calmed down a bit.
We're nurses, and we're upset. And I'm trying to calm it down too, but as a nurse, I'm like going, my God, Florence Nightingale is my hero. Yeah. And what she did, we'll have another discussion later, but if they would have just done the basic Florence Nightingale stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Just the basic. And she was a mathematician and statistician, one of the great ones, the first female to go to the Royal Society of Statisticians. She wasn't just a nurse, she was a genius, and she proved all infection and saved so many lives. And again, and she was all about taking pride in your job and your work. So all this infection.
A really good anecdote here. So going back to the private managers taking over these services who had no clue, because apparently there's only care plans in our service because we've been directed to by the commissioners. And I said, so I'm looking at this. Sorry?
Yeah, we can hear you now. I don't know if you can hear us. Sorry.
Hi, it's Jonathan. Yes, I'm doing it on my phone as suggested. Is that better?
Much better.
How do I add you to the stage now? Let me see if I can.
I think I'm on the stage actually. I can see myself.
You can see yourself. Oh, I can see you, but I can. Yeah, you're just coming up as a black square. But oh no, there you are. Sorry. Yeah, I can see you now. I don't know who. That must be Mervyn. So this is.
I just quickly. So she said she thought they'd only been invented in the last year since the commissioners. So I was like. I said, nurses invented care plans. So no, they didn't. So I went and got one online dated 1924, and it was exactly the same. Anyway,
yes.
Just quick.
No, absolutely. They're getting some messages from the chat, and people want to hear. We want to go back to the focus on what Lucy, the situation today, and what was discussed, and where it's going to move from here, really. And how positive do people feel that the CCRC, for example, are going to, the CCRC are going to actually expedite this? I'm not sure how people feel about that.
In my opinion, it all depends on whether they look at it completely legally or whether they look at all the medical evidence, because the medical evidence today was utterly compelling. I mean, completely overwhelmingly compelling. She should be let out tomorrow on the basis of the medical evidence. But things like court rules, like why wasn't all this evidence produced at the time of the trial? Why didn't the defence team do that? Is a very important question, which the Court of Appeal may say is relevant. And as I was talking to a friend about it yesterday, the attitude of the court is, well, if you didn't produce the evidence at the time and when you had the chance, you can't expect us to go back and completely rerun the case because all this evidence wasn't produced at the time. So that may be a big stumbling block.
Yes, and David Davis did address that point that there needs to be more of a wider appreciation of what may constitute new evidence. I mean, and in fact, Mark McDonald said in the conference today that he deemed this new evidence in the way it was being presented, and that's the statement he made about it, isn't it? Is that what you thought as well?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I suppose it's just how the Court of Appeal actually view it. But the bottom line is, if she is innocent and she is in jail for the rest of her life on the basis of completely appalling initial evidence, then that there is a major problem. So I think it's going to be a big test case in terms of how these sort of cases are handled in the future.
Absolutely. The comment just come through from LDL. Mark McDonald didn't mention going directly back to the Court of Appeal, whereas in December he was doing this two-pronged thing of applying. He said doing this almost unprecedented idea of going directly back to the Court of Appeal, but that wasn't mentioned today, I don't believe.
That's right. No, I didn't hear that.
No. Have you got any thoughts about that, Mervyn or Jenny? Oh, I think Mervyn's just disappeared.
I know nothing about legal, but just from a standpoint of medicine, I mean, if this doesn't reach, it better reach America. It better reach Elon Musk. This is just the most appalling thing that has ever happened to a nurse, besides being maybe killed on the job. And everyone, and and any of you doctors out there watching it, thank you so much. I mean, there's so many doctors that came to her. It's making us nurses feel better. But every nurse I know, I'm trying to get involved. But again, this, and there were doctors here from America and the thing too. All these doctors were just the cream of the cream and everything. So this should be an international event. I mean, appalling event, like human rights, like I'm talking all the human rights people should be all over this. Anyone, anywhere in the world. This is a massive human rights thing. And you know what? This is why nurses are leaving. And it's nurses that run the hospital. It is your nurse that'll be able to figure out if something's going wrong. Yes, the doctors give all the orders and stuff like that too, but they're not there. They can't be there. The nurse is there 24/7. So there's no I'm glad I'm out of nursing. It's for my own protection, and I love to do this stuff, but otherwise you're going to lose every nurse and some doctors too. And I know doctors are just as appalled as that too, because they view us wonderfully as colleagues. So this is going to have massive ramifications just so far as healthcare. If she is not at least immediately released, just waiting appeal or something like that.
Can I tell you, Mark?
Yes,
we have
absolutely.
a wonderful
Thank
person
you,
watching tonight, who this is a wonderful story. When I started to work as a doctor, my very first job was in Hereford, as I told you, and she was an absolutely wonderful, became one of my closest friends, and she was a nurse, and she taught me everything I knew in my very early stages of my career. She then actually resigned from nursing, which was a great loss to nursing, but she became a teacher, and she taught in Hereford, and she was actually Lucy Letby's teacher.
Oh my goodness!
And she is, I think, on the chat tonight. She's going to be watching. Her name's Wendy.
That's incredible.
Wendy didn't really know very much about the case until a few weeks ago, when I really got her up to speed, and she's been absolutely incredibly involved, and she's an enormous fan of yours now, and she's been watching everything, and she's completely up to speed.
That's incredible.
We must welcome Wendy, because Wendy's one of the very, very few people.
Bless you, Wendy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome, Wendy, and welcome everybody in the chat. Do you think it would be? Hi, Wendy Pig. Wendy's saying hello, and welcome to everyone else as well. Well, Wendy, would you consider coming on to speak? I don't know. No pressure or anything like that, and you could just do audio if you wanted. But that would be great if you'd like to do that. I put the invitation again in the stream in the, not the stream, the chat. And then I think you just click on that if you would like to. But oh yeah, if you'd like to speak. So I think you just click on that and then it comes up. I've got a maximum of 6 people that can come on at any one time. This is all quite new to me, you know, I'm not a technical person, but so if you'd like to click on that, Wendy, that link there. Oh, there's Mervyn. I'm going to add Mervyn back to the stage now. Hi, Mervyn. Welcome back.
Sorry, sometimes I have to disappear.
No, absolutely. So. No worries at all. Absolutely. It's great to see you. And we're just talking about Wendy, who just to recap, Jonathan, it was so Wendy was a nurse, but then she retrained as a teacher. That's right, and she taught Lucy Letby. Is that correct? I don't know if Jonathan can you hear me now, Jonathan?
I can hear you now. Yeah. Sorry. Hi.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm just wondering whether Wendy would like to come on.
I don't know.
Hi, Black. Hi, Black. That's Black Squareable. Well, I'll leave it to everybody. Anybody who does want to come on, no pressure. Not everybody does necessarily. But where were we? I wrote so many notes about it because I watched the thing again this afternoon. But there were so many amazing lines from Dr. Lee. So many things he said, and with regard to the Baby K case, I thought, well, that staggering line he says, well, because he didn't use any of the names of the doctors. He said, well, the consultant didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah,
he didn't know what he was doing in respect of every element of.
Jerram was at the birth of that baby. And he was whoever intubated it. He was just, I think, letting the junior doctor intubate. So it was I think it started from there, and then he tried to re-intubate, you know, back in the NICU. So he totally eviscerated Jerram.
But wasn't Baby K extremely premature? Wasn't that like the 27 week old one?
Yes, that's right.
No, Baby K was 25 weeks and 600. Yeah. It wasn't 25. The smallest. No. It wasn't the most premature, but it was under 700 grams, very tiny. But, you know, and stuff. And also another thing that was the birth of and I'm not not a maternity nurse at all, but it looks like that baby might have had too fast of a delivery, and that's why it had a liver issue to begin with. Because 2 out of the 3 triplets. So that I would love to hear from some doctors who know, was this delivered? Were they delivered too quickly? You know, or why were they delivered too quickly? Were they in some sort of a distress and they had to deliver? Because those babies both had liver injuries.
That was the
liver injury was almost certainly caused by Dr. Brewery, where that's.
Well, yeah, but they started out at birth. They had a subcapsular
hematoma.
Liver, and they say that can happen with delivery again because they have to twist these babies out and turn them and pull them and stuff like that. And they may have done it, and I don't know. They may have done it too hard or too quick. Again, were the babies under distress during delivery and they had to get these things out, or were they just not very good at delivering triplets? I don't know. That would be, you know, again, a lot of this stuff is coming from the delivery room too. We're all talking about the NICU, but that, you know, baby D was delivery room. These triplets could have been too, and these triplets should have been delivered because this was an elective delivery, if I'm not mistaken. So it wasn't like an emergency. We showed up. It was just from the very beginning. They promised this mom she would have 1-to-1 care for her babies, and we can take care of this kind of a situation. And here, dang, she gets 2 out of the 3 died.
So I think we've got Wendy on.
Just say hi, Wendy, and welcome. Thanks so much for coming on. And I'm gonna just bring also Black Squareable on, also AKA known as Black. So we've got the full complement of people now, and it's a maximum 6 I can have at any one time apparently. So welcome, Wendy, and welcome Black to the live thing.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. So Wendy, I mean, Jonathan was telling us that you actually taught Lucy Letby.
Yeah, I didn't teach her. I was a teaching assistant at that time. I became a teacher later, but she was at the. My kids were also at school. at the same time as Lucy. One of my kids was younger than her. One of my kids was older, so they kind of overlapped for quite. I remember her very clearly because it's a small school. It was a 1-form entry school, 200 kids. We knew them all and their families. It was a very
was it a Catholic school or
no? It's a Church of England school.
Oh well, okay.
So,
but it's interesting. The church hasn't gotten involved in the case at all to support her or her family. Well, not publicly, anyway. I mean, not that. I mean,
that wouldn't surprise me, in all honesty. As in, I mean, it was and still is a Church of England school, but I imagine they would be wanting to keep out of it. That would be my take, probably. And I mean, actually, the school now, there would probably only be 1, possibly 2 members of staff that would remember her, because over that period of time, the staff have changed. But as it happened for me, my kids all went there. My kids are all very grown up now. One is a couple of years older than Lucy, and one is a couple of years younger than Lucy. And
so sorry, was it the primary school or the secondary school? Sorry. Primary. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. As soon as I saw the photo in the news, I thought, "Oh, I know her."
Gosh,
actually, she doesn't look that different. I mean, some people change incredibly, don't they? And especially girls, and they're unrecognisable. In fact, she's not unrecognisable at all. So she was just quite a quiet girl, an ordinary, average, run-of-the-mill student that would not.
But aren't all like 10-year-olds?
Well, no, there's some that you remember, and as I've said to Jonathan, I've taught a few kids who, if they ended up in the news, I wouldn't have been at all surprised.
Really? What, from primary?
But whose names are etched in my memory, but not her. And her parents were very quiet. They're kind of noticeable because they were slightly older parents to a lot of the parents. And she didn't live in the catchment area for that school. So the catchment area where Lucy's parents lived was one of the less good parts of Hereford, shall I say. So not like terrible, but one of the poorer areas of Hereford. And we used to get a few children whose parents didn't want them to be in the schools that side of the river, who used to get into our school. And Lucy was one of those. So that was obviously one of the choices that her parents made at that time, was for her to be in a school that was in a middle class area, not the other side of the river. So.
Oh, that's really fascinating. I mean, there was Lucy's childhood friendship group, and I think her best friend, was it Dawn? Is that her name? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Dawn. Yeah, is that right, Black?
Yeah, I think they must have been friends from secondary school, rather than primary school. I would assume, because I don't remember that girl. So. But the primary school had sort of one main feeder school, and then other kids went to different secondaries for a variety of reasons. So she again went to a secondary school that would not have been in her catchment area, that would have been the other side of town to where she lived, because, as many parents will tell you, they don't always want their kids to go to the school that's the local one, because it might not be the best. So
sure, I understand.
But the fascinating thing is that Wendy's also a nurse, and Wendy spent many years as a nurse. In fact, she taught me everything I ever knew. So she's a very special person.
Yes, it's fantastic to have you on and to have everybody on, but it's just that you've got this direct connection.
She doesn't look old enough.
No, I was going to say.
I thought I'd say it, you know. There.
No, well, that's brilliant. Well done. Well done. That's true. I agree.
From the hands of Dr. Moore.
And if I can just interject, you can always tell a good doctor because they appreciate the nurses and they have a good they both work together, you know, just like peas and carrots, as Forrest Gump would say. But it just, you know, that's when the patients get the best of care, when there's just that good collaboration. You both enjoy it, you both know you're good. And plus, I remember I was in a high a university-based hospital. I remember seeing the interns grow up, and I took pride in the fact that some of them made it to the top of where I am in St. Louis. And I took pride in the fact that they may not remember me, but I remember them. And I was part of that thing and nurturing them. And we worked together, and it was just so wonderful to see them just blossom into these great physicians. So we take pride in the physicians too, because when we work with them, because we know we are helping them and stuff like that. And the best ones learn early on. The nurse, you know, we can work together and we can create such great stuff. So thank you for all, you know, being a great doctor and appreciating us nurses.
Oh, no. Can I just ask, Black Squareable, you've been so wonderful. I've been watching all your videos. You've been absolutely brilliant. Can you give us your background? Because you've never really disclosed your background or who you are. And we're all fascinated by you and so thankful for all the incredible work you've done.
Oh, thank you so much, because I haven't been on for a few weeks now, so I'm like really blown away you said that. So I live in Tromsø. I'm from the UK. I'm really interested in linguistics. I'm studying linguistics now. I actually work as a cleaner. So I also like true crime a lot. Not because I like gory stuff, but I'm interested in the mystery and seeing what things add up and what things don't. And with the whole linguistics and handwriting as well, I'm interested in matching things, you know, so like seeing if someone could have written a document and things like that. So yeah, when I was looking at Dr. Jerem's language, so I'm quite interested in the like behavior panel and how they because they've studied a lot of body language. Body language is a bit less my thing, but it can be quite. They go into quite a lot of detail on things like that. I'm more interested in linguistics. They're less interested in that. There's not so much about that. So looking at Dr. Jerem, particularly, and also Dr. Breary's some, things just did not add up at all. I thought this guy is completely making it up. And I can't remember, you know, what I've said about it now, because I'm onto other things at the minute. But I took a transcript of what he said blow by blow.
No, it was absolutely fascinating. I mean, I found your videos brilliant to watch, and the level of detail that you've gone to and your understanding. Like Mark, you've been an absolute inspiration to all of us and so helpful.
Thank you so much. And I got to say, it's really fantastic to have you and Wendy on, because, you know, a I mean, you, Wendy, you're actually a connection with Lucy Letby. So it's so interesting to hear what you've got to say about this.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I find it, well, obviously quite shocking, because I thought, I don't know about this. And then I think, because if you just read what is in the press, which is obviously a very dangerous thing to do, then, you know, you sort of think, well, I was saying to Jonathan, I'd initially found it hard to believe that, you know, not a jury, but that, you know, the prosecution and everything could have got something so wrong, you know. And I think when I've spoken to a lot of my friends and that, who were, you know, they're all very intelligent people, they're not stupid, but there's, you know, some people are skeptical about her innocence and said, oh, well, you know, she's been tried and appealed, and then when you dig a bit deeper, like Jonathan was telling me this stuff, and I was thinking, well, God, you know, I assumed that an expert witness was an expert witness, but that ain't necessarily so, is it?
No.
So,
the thing is, you don't actually have to dig that deep. That is the real shocking thing.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, all those mistakes and inconsistencies, they're so close to the surface.
Exactly.
You know, how did it get missed?
And
I just if I can just interject, I just want to welcome Manny to the screen there. Hi, Manny, and thanks for joining us. And thanks for everybody in the chat. And lovely to see you. And just wondering what you're thinking of what's been going on as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, I'm Manny, and
hi, Manny.
Hi, thank you I saw your video, and it really just piqued my interest. You know, I really needed somewhere to kind of process what I watched today from that press conference. I was in deep shock, also, just and I really felt it restored some faith in some humanity, actually, you know.
I felt the same,
on a deeper level.
Most definitely.
You know,
yeah.
That was
you know, there was one good consultant in this whole saga that I found. I don't know if you want me to name her or not, but she really gave all these hints and everything in her testimony. I'm assuming she was forced to testify both at Thurl and that. She tried to protect the junior doctors.
I remember that.
I don't. Can I name her, Mark?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, Elizabeth Newby. And
Elizabeth Newby,
wonderful. All those hints she gave. You know, they were trying to get her to agree that these skin changes were this. That she goes, no, this looks like infection. And what I can tell that the junior doctors went to her like, so she was a mentor to them and stuff like that too. But she left in February of 16, so I'm assuming she got the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, she got out of Dodge. Yeah, she did.
You know, and I'm assuming she had to protect herself. I'm assuming she may or may not have had children. She also probably had to protect some of these junior doctors too, who were not being supervised. So,
very difficult.
You know what? She at all of her. If you look at her Thurwall, she was like, no, that's infection. But again, she didn't point a finger at anyone. She just testified perfectly, like you would expect someone to testify. So, you know, I would have loved to have met that lady. I would love to have worked with her. So,
what I found, you know, what really interested me in this, and I come from a really completely different perspective. Like, I had obviously had concerns about the case since I'd seen it in the news and stuff, but it comes from what made me really question the legitimacy of this was there was a spate of serious incidents in a local trust, a rather large trust, related to mental health deaths, within a particular NHS trust, and the defense of the trust, you know, and it just reminded me so deeply of what was kind of happening with this Lucy Letby case. You know, just the thought of like they were not prepared to accept you know, the consequences of negligence, right? Where it could mean people could die, and you know, so just the scale of the cover up in that regard that I was sort of involved in, you know, just brought this all back in this case. And I said, why are they not focusing on uncovering the truth? Rather, there could be like scope for her to be a scapegoat. And the NHS, we forget, is the largest public health monopoly, right? In the world, almost, right? It's a 200 billion budget annually. So there are some people, you know, and that's mammoth. So just to think, just from that failings perspective, and how people can departure from, you know, moral fortitude, you know, made me take another look at this, and I'm so glad I did. You know, like from my own conscience perspective, you know. So yeah, that's why I joined. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That's really interesting. And when I've been talking to my friend today on Messenger, we're just thinking that this is a huge case, and it'll have huge ramifications when Lucy is exonerated. And I think it's a case of when, it's not if. It's just a case of when now. And but I think this is an exemplar, or it exemplifies the culture of cover up in so many other areas of our public life, and probably in other countries as well. But I'm just thinking of Britain at the moment. But I think it does exemplify that, and
the world and America. You know, your Charlie Gard thing that happened a few years ago, that's been very studied in medical ethics. I don't know if you all know, you know, with Charlie Gard, that, you know, Trump offered to have him over and stuff like that baby thing. But this will be studied in medical ethics. Yes. And this will be studied, and it should be studied. And we have our own versions of this in America too. I mean, we have our own little, you know, it's smaller and stuff like that. So we have, and in the hospitals, it kind of depends what the zip code is, the postal code is, how good the hospital is. I hate to say it. They're going to put the money is where the people have the money, and people will go, and people have good insurance, and people that don't have good insurance, well, those are going to be usually the crappy hospitals and stuff. Okay. So we have our own version of this too. So don't feel so bad. It's the NHS. America has our versions too.
Going to the basics, Mark, about a lot of it comes down to the judge. I mean, how on earth did the judge allow such the prosecution to get away with such, you know, with so many different aspects that they? I mean, for example, he was warned about Dewey Evans and how appallingly bad, what a bad reputation he had. It was all known, yet he didn't reject the evidence. And also he just didn't direct the jury or put forward the evidence in any balanced way at all. I mean, the judge surely has really got to take a lot of responsibility for this miscarriage of justice.
I absolutely agree, and in some ways he did. There were instances where he directed the jury, and one particular instance was that he actually gave them a direction that they needn't know the exact method of killing a baby, but they could assume that essentially Lucy Letby was in a murderous state of mind. And so you've got this paradox between, not paradox, this oppositional idea that these experts were meant to be delineating each cause of death across that indictment, but the judge would then weaken it all and mush it all together and just say, well, you don't really have to know which version or which mode of death was employed by Lucy Letby, who was an alleged serial killer that had all these different methods. Some worked really well, and but she didn't stick with those. She changed tack, and she failed to. So it's bizarre. It was a complete. I'm just going to add Edward to the stage.
Do you think the judge maybe glossed over everything? It just couldn't keep it up like the jury? It was just 10 months of too much information, and he wanted to look like he knew what he was doing, but again, he was probably checking out to some degree.
Not impossible, because I mean we've had judges with like, say, terrible attitudes towards women, and you know, someone's been acquitted of rape or child abuse or something because the judge has passed a comment, and like cases like that have actually been in the news. Less so these days, but it certainly has happened, because judges have got their own biases, even though they're supposed to like be impartial and just go on the evidence. Like, their own personalities do come into it. So another judge might have, done something different on the day. So,
do you think he liked Dewey Evans because they're both probably misogynists? Do you think that could have been it too?
Could be. I mean, Dewey Evans is
The ultimate
dubious Evans.
misogynist.
He's a strange, weird, very unsavory person.
He is.
Yeah.
I said to Jonathan, when you read that he said in several times that it only took him 10 minutes to come up with the conclusion that there had been murders. 10 minutes, and all these other people have spent weeks and months looking at this evidence, but he knew in 10 minutes. He thinks he's a bit special, doesn't he, in many ways?
He wanted to he was paid a lot of money, and basically he felt it was his job to prove guilt. That was clearly the only attitude and approach he took, which is why the judge before said his testimonies was useless, because it wasn't impartial.
No, exactly. And you kind of can't blame the jury in a way, because what they were fed was, faulty, dodgy
Totally
evidence.
agree.
So you kind of can't blame them. And I can imagine how, for a lay person to have sat and waded through all this medical evidence, there's has to be reliance on the expert witness, because
plus
these people,
Sandy Bowen and all the others,
Wendy, and Jonathan, I want to ask if you two have been on the jury, because you're both in the medical field. How easy would you have found it? Because obviously you got the knowledge, but there were so many cases.
Black Square. What's your actual name? Because we all know you as Black Squareable. What's your actual name?
Right. Okay. I don't give my name out on social media, but I'll have to find a name like.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm an expert witness. I do expert witness work. I'm a GP, but I basically spend most of my time doing expert witness work. That's why I'm so fascinated by it all. And I very early on in the case, I was extremely dubious of everything. And in fact, I actually went up and sat in on the second trial, her second trial up in Manchester in June last year. So I actually was in the courtroom. I saw the jury, saw everything. And so that's why it's been extremely harrowing for me, because it's been so personal, having actually sat in the courtroom and seen it all happen in front of my eyes.
Yeah. The biggest mystery is the defense, isn't it? I mean, that's to the extent where it almost seemed like they were in cahoots. Firstly, they agreed that someone wasn't a murderer, that someone had been murdered. They agreed to that. So they're already looking for a murderer. So that's the first mystery. They admitted that. And secondly,
and didn't they start with the parents at the beginning, at the very beginning of the trial? The parents gave their stories and stuff. So you have to want to just, okay, I'm going to hang anyone for this. I think they kind of opened a lot of it too.
But that's it. But also the thing that came to happen this morning, that was really, who's the female consultant? Anyway, she said that she had offered to give testimony.
Was it Elizabeth Newby offered?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was the Royal College of, the one at the press conference.
Testimony. So what was going on there? They didn't, I mean, it was just wasn't understandable. It's beyond incompetence. So I think something, you're suspicious it's something else.
Well, this is the big problem, is that, if the defense, if they're just completely incompetent and somebody is actually convicted for a whole life sentence on a poor defence. At the moment, the way the law is that you just have to suck it up. But it's clearly completely, totally unacceptable. But
maybe that will change now, because I mean, through all this, you can see that there are weaknesses in how people are tried, how cases go to court, and stuff, which leads to all these mistakes. So maybe the whole judicial process will be reviewed. We can hope so. Something like this doesn't happen again. Okay, I'm going to have to duck out now because it's getting late where I am. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I mean, I did give an example of when I was previously on, which I can go through again, where occasionally a defendant expert can actually make things worse and have the completely opposite effect. Do you want me to just explain that again or not?
Yes, absolutely. And just before you do, I just wanted to welcome, they call it the stage here, but welcome Edward to the stage here, and Black's left, and it's lovely to see her. But hi Edward, thank you for coming on. You're muted, is it?
That was one of the other things about Julie. He didn't speak like an expert. You know what I mean? Because they say this doesn't, a doctor would say this didn't indicate, or there would be words that weren't as harsh as, she did it or didn't, or this sort of thing. Whereas he was speaking that way to the jury, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, his approach was completely wrong. I mean, you should never have that. You're there for the court, and you should give a balanced opinion on everything.
Well, that's why the judge, yeah.
So in that respect as well, he was completely he contravening his duties to the court as an expert witness. He did it completely wrong. Effectively, he was like acting as a prosecutor, which is the last thing you should ever do as an expert witness.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. I just wondered if I could interject very quickly, because I thought what Dr. Lee said today when he was asked about Dr. Evans, he said you should ask him 3 questions, and I'll just read them out. And I think you'll probably remember them, but I'll just read them out. I thought they were devastating questions. So the first one was, if the panel, that means all those experts, found so many problems with the medical care at the COCH, how come that Evans found none at all? That was the first question. The second one was his selective use of information, and he gave an example of that. He was very selective. And the third one was, why does Evans go around looking for malfeasance, i.e. deliberate harm, when there was an obvious cause of death in many instances, really
and
obvious
also
cause.
He didn't have his medical license, I think, when he was testifying. Isn't there something about?
Yes, there is. That's absolutely right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's been known for a while.
Was he an expert then if he didn't have if he wasn't current with his license? I don't know what the rules are.
No.
Well, the difficulty really is you've got to find somebody who's willing to sit in a courtroom for 10 months. And I'm an expert, and I don't do criminal because I just can't do long trials. I'd have to be working. So most criminal trials are done by retired physicians because they're the only people who can give the amount of time required. So that's the reason. Both him and Dr. Bowen were both retired doctors.
Oh right. Well, I thought. Because Sandy Bowen, there's a bit of an issue there. I'm not judging what it is, but she's certainly being taken to task by certain families on Guernsey in terms of her treatment of certain. She's a paediatrician, obviously, but I do know that with Sandy Bowen, this was her entry into the world of acting it was her first gig, as it were, her first job. As an expert witness.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, it was her first go at it.
Oh, and one of the anonymous doctors is linked in with her. I won't say, I'm not saying any names or anything like that, but just so you know, one of the anonymous doctors is linked in as directly with her and doing
right. Oh, right. Yeah. Well, there's so many links that are sort of dubious or that kind of throw up red flags, really. I just wondered, would you like to say something, Edward? I don't know if can you hear us? Oh, the mic's not working. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
You could write out a placard, stick it on the in front of the mic.
If it's not working at the moment, I don't know if anybody else, because there's a maximum of 6 people that can come on. Is it all right if I, remove you from the stage? I don't want to be rude or anything, but and it can free up a space. But it's but perhaps next time when the mic is working, that would be lovely to hear from you. I'm just getting used to how to do this because I've got this free plan, and it's a maximum of 6 people. Oh, thank you, Edward, and I really appreciate you being here, and everybody else in the chat. So if anybody else would like to join us, I'll just put the link again in the chat. So we've got these 6 spaces, and I can duck out as well. So if more than
and
2
you can
people.
duck me out too, Mark, if you need to, because I'm American. You know, whatever you need to do, bring in people.
I don't mind ducking in and out, but it's been fascinating to have the American perspective from yourself, Jenny, and also from, I don't know the gentleman's actual name, but Operation Merlin Falcon.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. He's a
he's
sort
great.
Of an investigator thing. He's right. He's getting all this, so it's been fun working with him.
Yeah, because he was formerly that was his job. He was in law enforcement as an investigator, wasn't he?
Right. I don't know his whole story or anything like that, but it's just I didn't understand the investigative part, and he didn't understand the medical part. So we made for good apples and oranges.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was what was so interesting today at the conference. I won't speak too much, but I'll just say there was all the elements there. Obviously, there was the legal and the medical aspects as well. My brain's frozen a minute. What was I going to say? Anyway, somebody else say something. I've just had a brain freeze.
You were going to talk about the conference and all the different aspects of it. That's what you were saying. You were saying about the different aspects of the conference.
Yeah, well, there was the conference, and just those devastating questions. Well, not devastating, but those very pertinent questions that Dr. Shuley said should be asked of Evans. But there was a thing that Mark McDonald says towards the end, where there was a question asked from the audience about who else will have sight of this report. Will you send it to Dr. Evans? Will you send these reports to the Cheshire Police? And Mark McDonald was very clear in saying he has no intention of interacting with Dr. Evans, and there's no reason why he should, is there really?
But he mentioned he thought the parents should get it, and I just thought,
he did. How
kind of him. And I think Lucy may have mentioned these parents need to know, and I to me that was like, they never forgot the parents, and Dr. Lee spoke for the babies that couldn't speak, and I thought, what a tremendous man. He retired on a farm in Canada. All he wants to be is do the harvest and do all that stuff.
But David Davis, because a lot of people that I've spoken to said, oh, it's awful dragging it all out for the parents again. But I thought David Davis in one of his interviews said that he was very aware of that feeling, and that he talked it over with his wife over the summer, and they had both come to the conclusion that had it been their baby, they would want to know the truth. And I think that is absolutely what the parents are owed, aren't they, of those babies?
They're just using that to try and shut the argument down.
Well, weren't they paid to? I mean, they probably had to sign an NDA. I'm assuming. I know Baby D's parents got money, and people have had claims and settlements, so the parents probably want to speak, and they're legally not allowed to.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but quite possibly. But it must be hard for them to listen to all this. But at the end of the day, what happened to their babies? That's what you'd want to know, wouldn't you? If it was your baby, if it was my baby.
Well, I could have been mom, the Baby D that died from because of the infection with the premature rupture of the membranes. That was me 30-something years ago. I was septic. My child was septic. I had the best of care. The doctors were great. They were on top of it, the whole bit. My daughter survived and went to the best children's hospital in the area, and I couldn't have asked for better from the interns, the residents, the nurses, the doctors, the obstetricians, my labor, the midwives. Everyone was on top of it, and I survived, and she survived, and she's a lawyer. And just an FYI, the joke is, what do you call the person that comes in last in their class in law school? And you call them Your Honor. So judges are not always respected here in America. They get their thing from, and I don't know how it is in there, but there's a way they get it, and it isn't always from brains.
That prophylactic antibiotics in that situation is not special care; it's just obvious. So I mean,
erythromycin, they said, would have done it. Erythromycin, that's an easy, cheap antibiotic, and just oral erythromycin would have prevented baby D. That's what's just so sad.
2 rounds a week, it's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, who allowed that to start? So that the whole thing. I wasn't too excited, but when they went into such specific details, basically after brewery, I need a beer. After brewery, it was brewery, wasn't it? That stabbed the liver, baby O.
Yes.
So I mean, there's nothing else on top of that. Do you know what I mean? It's just he knew incompetence, 1, and then covering it up, 2, and then blaming someone else. I mean, you can't get a lower snake than that, can you?
4 doctors, 1 register, and 3 consultants were witness to that event.
Yeah.
The one register is anonymous, and I know who all they are. One of the doctors was there was a thing for that. She was the crash consultant, so she carried the beeper for the crash. That was a day shift, and it took her 40 minutes to show up. That was Dr. B. They call it the boyfriend register. He's not, but he was the thing too. And then it was Brewery and Gibbs. So all of them have their hands dirty with sepsis. They were witnesses.
So what I mean is really nothing to me was exposed, because it was just more of what we already knew. It was just very specific, detailed, which is obviously very useful for the for the defence, for the next defence.
I thought there was a very good and clear explanation as to the so-called smoking gun insulin case, and this idea that Shuley talked about, this yo-yoing effect.
Yeah.
Of when you introduce boluses of glucose rather than a gradual titration of it. Yeah, the wrong treatment. That's what he says, and then you get this yo-yoing effect of the insulin being produced. But more than that, the fact that obviously he's saying that neonates they're not little adults. They're of a different physiological type.
Yeah, which is evidence.
That was baby F. Just an FYI, and I hate to interject. That was twin to baby E. That's the baby that bled to death. So there's a reason they picked these insulin babies, because they were twin to some other nasty event too. So I'm dying to hear about the baby I story, and I'm dying to hear about Jerram with his chest tubes. And you as a physician, that it wasn't one of the babies that was mentioned, but another baby, they left butterfly needles in this baby's chest.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Then couldn't even put in a chest tube. To me, I'm like going, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine having a butterfly needle in 2 of them in the chest. So I'm interested when the final things come up. That's the one I want to see. So. Well,
can I ask you all and everybody in the chat as well whether you've drawn the same inference with regard to baby K and Jayaram as I did? Is that I thought Dr. Shuley was essentially saying that because of the mismanagement of ventilation and using the wrong tube, and then not understanding how the neopuff wouldn't be sufficient, that in fact Jayaram is effectively responsible for what happened to baby K in the longer term. In other words, so you've got this gang of 4 now. You've got Gibbs leaving that Dr. Gibbs leaving the monitor off, but you've got 3 of the other 4. This hard group of 4 who are potentially each responsible for the death of a child, and those are the hardcore of doctors that are essentially, in my view, persecuting Lucy Letby.
What's actually been done criminally?
By the doctors or by anybody involved? Anybody?
Because I mean, Evans has lied. I mean, he's plainly lied, hasn't he?
Well, I
Sharon.
believe so. Well, I think Jayaram is guilty of, what's the term in
Surgery.
perjury? Yeah, I would say so. I believe so. Yeah.
And anyone who
It's proving
testified,
it,
I
though.
saw those air embolism weird signs too. There was that's shady. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, those are septic signs or signs of shock. There's a warm shock and a cold shock. There's different signs and stuff. They all knew this was an air embolism. They were all, any of them who did that thing. That's to me is gray area perjury.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's I don't know where it will end up, whether they will bring anything against any of these individuals. I don't know.
Well,
I hope they do, but the problem with miscarriages of justice is there's no money to actually bring cases. I went to a meeting with a very senior QC who said that he was involved in something that changed the law in the Court of Appeal, but the only reason was that his client was incredibly brave, and she knew that if she failed, she'd be liable for a huge amount of money. But they were successful, and it changed the law. And the difficulty is that often after these things happen, everyone just disappears. But really, we need a heck of a lot of test cases from all the different issues that have been brought up in it. And I doubt we will get them, but that's what we need.
Well, I think there's so much support for Lucy. I mean, I think it's possible if someone does set up a appeal, because Carl was talking about it, wasn't he? Or if somebody well-known puts up some sort of what's it called, the fund, online fund.
Yeah,
so I think she would get the money. I think, or not somebody who's going to do the prosecuting.
Couldn't she sue them? I mean, couldn't she sue the doctors for libel and get some money? Of course, that would be a long thing, but
yeah.
Well,
to do that, she would need money, and that's what the fund would pay for if it was started.
I'd like to say that, I think there's levels of corruption involved here that we'll never know the full extent of, but there's a little suggestion of one element of it which came out in the report by these notes from this detective sergeant in Operation Hummingbird, in which the police were fully aware that Dewey Evans was pointing to babies when Lucy Letby was not on duty and was making the same allegations there. So they just quietly dropped those. So instead of the police saying, we've got a person here we can't rely on, they were just happy for them just to do all this horse trading and just drop babies at will where there's allegations of deliberate harm, and only just use the ones that they could use, as it were. And that just in order to work up this framing of Lucy Letby. So I think there was so much deliberate construction of this framing of her. I see that as pure corruption.
They wanted to be
actually
known as the next person that found the serial killer. They're going to be on the documentaries. They're going to be on the Netflix. They're going to get their fame and fortune. I mean, I found a serial killer. Even look at that coroner's officer thing. What was her name? Stephanie Davies. Oh my gosh, she's the one that sent the chapter of a book to Paul Hughes and said this is what healthcare serial killers are. So I'm sure they were like, oh my God, enthralled with themselves. And so was Dewey Evans or whatever his too. They all wanted their fame and fortune as the next.
Oh, how's the volume?
I think that's a lot better, and I believe that the chat would say it was a lot better. Yeah, that there's less bass on it now, and that's great. But I
go on.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Yeah, I was just going to say. I keep forgetting what I'm going to say because there's so much in my head after what we've seen today. Yeah, somebody else say something because I'm just overloaded with things I could say.
I've just started using Linux, I've just started using Linux because I'm determined to get rid of Microsoft. So that's why it took me a while to find the button for the.
Oh, right. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, sorry.
Everybody.
Yes, my friend uses it. I'd like to try it one day. Well, and what were you saying, Wendy? There, you was going to say something.
I just find it interesting since I started speaking to Jonathan about it. I've delved into sort of Facebook and other kind of social media, out of interest to see what, you know, people are saying. And there are a surprising amount of groups out there of your average man in the street who thinks that she's innocent, you know. And I found that quite interesting because, you know, a lot of what is, you know, put in the press is obviously very basic. This is what was said in court and this is what happened, and there's no nuance or fine detail, or, you know, and people just accept that. And that a lot of the reasons that people who believe that she's guilty are giving are plainly, now I've read all this stuff, not reasons for thinking she's guilty, because they're not accurate or they're just not true.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you know, and it's very frightening, really, because you think, wow, you know, you kind of have this faith in this system, and it seems almost fantastical that this kind of event could have happened, and yet it appears to have done so, you know. It's just catastrophic, really. I mean, you just can't imagine. And, you know, people think that, oh, she's cold, she didn't say this, she didn't look, you know, distressed, and, you know, but I'm sure that in reality she's probably on a lot of, you know, antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs, and, you know, maybe there's, I said to Jonathan,
exactly,
maybe,
I mean, the atmosphere in the courtroom was just hideous. And I mean, the poor girl was sitting there with all these people looking at her, and I just think she was incredible that she stood up to it the way she did. And of course, you're not going to look empathic. You're just trying to survive in there. And
exactly.
And the impact of being cross-examined by a very skilled KC is just, you are going to be torn to shreds. And so she did a really good, she behaved as well as she possibly could, because she's damned if she did, she's damned if she didn't. So it's best to keep very, very, everyone says, you know, she sat there very, very still and she was completely motionless. Well, that's what you need to be, because when you're everybody looking at you, scrutinizing you, that's the best way to play it.
But then if she'd have cried hysterically, they would have said, the press would have said it was crocodile tears and, you know, all that, wouldn't they? Because that's what they do, you know. So it's...
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And there's another thing I think as well, I'm sure people feel the same, that she was expected to, and at the point of the trial, and when it goes into 2023, she's looking back 8 years ago, and expected to remember what room she was in 8 years. And she's looked after, as they keep reminding us, hundreds or maybe even thousands of babies she's had contact with since she, through her training and into those years that she was after she'd qualified. And they expected her to remember everything. But they didn't put, well, you know, Mr. Jaya or Dr. Jayaram was allowed to adjust his timings at will, just to fit the next, you know, because the CPS got the timings wrong of the door. So he's just allowed just to move the timings, whereas before he was absolutely certain of the time on his watch. And then he could just move it back several minutes, you know, just to fit for the,
that's it. And unless it was something at the time, obviously those were horrible events, and she would have recalled details about some of them because they were not pleasant events. But actually the details of where you were and what you did, well, no, of course you wouldn't, not unless there was some real reason for you to remember what room you were in, or, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just I just feel, I mean, her parents must be, well, you know, they must be absolutely devastated.
They must be.
Very quiet, very doting parents, and she's their only child. So,
I mean, she was their whole world, and we know from the trial that they were very, very worried about just very simple things like the fact she lived alone and things like that. But what it must be like being in Bronzefield prison with some of the most violent female prisoners in the world, and of course, if they don't believe that she is innocent, she's at major risk. I mean, I don't think she can be mixing with many of the other prisoners, because potentially, I mean, we saw with the other, the father of the child, he's already been attacked in prison and seriously assaulted, and it must be terrifying for her to be in prison, to be in Bronzeville.
Hideous.
I just wanted to come back in on that, you know. I remember there was a case of the mother who had 2 children who had died up north, and I think there was like an expert that had said, you know, it was a something in a million chance of the likelihood of having multiple children, right? And then it turned out that actually
it's the Sally Clark case,
the Sally Clark
Professor
case.
Sir Roy Meadows.
Yeah, and I'm not in the legal field, but I do remember something kind of was supposed to come out of that, right, to avoid something similar or something with experts casting dispersions like this, but into the wind. But the fact that what happened to that lady after she was exonerated, right, like she died an awful death. She drank herself to death, you know. So the ramifications, like the torment of being villainized, even now looking at some of the press releases in the news, you know, they're still defensive because they've sold the public a lie, you know.
Absolutely.
So the risk of that, you know, I just think she's been tried by media, you know. It's like the whole state and the whole system has kind of gone against her. The fact that she's still alive, you know, it is just that mental torture. And I just, you know, I'm a spiritual person. I do pray that, you know, like that she's supported in some way, you know, because this doesn't just go away once the truth's out, you know, and to have such composure, I think really does say something too. So,
and unfortunately, the British press are brutal, you know. They're brutal, and I mean, I was remembering the case of Joanna something. She was murdered in Clifton in Bristol.
Oh yes, that's right.
Her landlord,
I do.
Who was plainly just a bit of an oddity. You know, he looked a little bit eccentric, seemed a bit odd. The press absolutely vilified him. He was guilty, he'd done this and he's done that, and he was arrested. He was released, and then it turned out that she'd been killed by her boyfriend or fiance, and he had absolutely nothing to do with it.
It was another chap. Who lived in one of the other flats that had done it, and he went back to Holland, but they eventually arrested him. But
they tracked him down. But the other guy, he actually sued people, didn't he?
His name was Christopher Jeffries, and he sued the newspapers for a huge amount of money, and quite rightly so. He did. Joanna Yates. Thank you.
I write to Lucy. I don't know if any of my letters get through, and I send her cards, and I try and tell her, you know, that she's got enormous amounts of support. So I hope even if she's going through a terrible ordeal, that at least people are writing and being really kind to her. And I think if she can get that message, that'd be fantastic.
I agree, and I've always wondered, and I've always hoped that, despite, you know, in prison there may be some people who, for whatever reason, with the dynamics there, want to make a name for themselves and feel as though they can attack somebody. But I'm wondering whether actually there, in a kind of counterintuitive way, there may be people that actually recognise that she's probably innocent, because I don't know. I'd like to think there were supporters in there, whether it's the staff and possibly other inmates that kind of see her for who she is, you know, even more than a lot of people do on Twitter, apparently, or in the press. That they've got more intuition, you know, than some of the people outside, as it were, you know. I hope so. Anyway,
I think that's the thing. I think it's really, even like, for example, for me, the fact that I know that the NHS is capable of something like this, or doctors, or you know what I mean? Like, I know this kind of organized like conspiracy to not own up to failings, you know, is possible. In the same way, like you said, there are likely people who can see the wood for the trees, you know, that this is just so unnatural how it's been conspired and constructed that you just start to question, you know. And so, yeah. And the same way the doctor came out and said, you know, I had to, sorry. The same way he said, I don't usually do legal cases, right? But I had my curiosity piqued when I heard it was about in reference to my report. And then he did the right thing, you know. And that, I think, has restored my faith in humanity, that there will be people who will do the right thing, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
How about
Absolutely.
you?
Sorry.
Mark?
Sorry.
How are you, Mark? Because a couple of weeks ago, we got a slight sort of worrying. So you said you were taking some time off from all this, and you mentioned the police and something. It was all a bit harrowing.
No,
Are you all right?
no. Well, yeah, it's still going on. I've got to be careful what I'm saying, and yeah, it's a bit tricky, that, but it's in some ways, in a very tiny way, there's some sort of echoes of. I can't compare it, but there's some weird stuff going on actually with the police. But I'm kind of taking it bit by bit, and I'm being a bit careful. I'm not sure where they're coming from vis-a-vis me at the moment. I mean, I haven't done anything wrong, but they're just behaving in quite a weird way. I mean, I'm in a complaints process with them, and they've actually. I mean, I don't know if there's a bit of a tricky thing here, because they I don't know what I should say about this, but
well, don't say anything.
No, it's a bit. I mean, that they contacted. This is the surprising thing. I don't want to go off the subject, but it just makes me think. What an awful. I'm not casting aspersion against all police officers. Of course, I'm not. I mean, there are many thousands of them. They're trying to do a very difficult job in many circumstances, but. With Lucy Letby, I mean, she was dealing with a group of officers that were so kind of up themselves, really. They seemed to be, and they were looking at her diaries or her work diary, and they were looking at things like LD for long day, and they were trying to make some secret code out of it, and make something out of everything they could see. You know, that's what they did. They saw that notification LD for long day, which is apparently a nursing standard thing, isn't it, Wendy? I imagine. And
yeah.
That's it. But they made a huge deal of that, and they wanted to reframe that as a code, a murder code, and not only that, there was this thing. It sounds so absurd that. When Lucy Letby, I think either through WhatsApp, or I'm just going to add Merv into the stage now, through WhatsApp or whatever the thing was, whether it was on Facebook, Lucy was coming back from Ibiza, I think it was, on holiday, wherever she was.
Yeah, back with a bang.
I'm coming back with a bang, and that's presented as a serial killer saying, I'm going to come back, and then there are 2 deaths, and then the police go, well, yeah, well, you did flag it up for us. It's absurd. It's madness. It's absolute madness.
So what have we knocked out the park now? So they've knocked out all the statistical stuff.
Gone.
But let's just remember the response to that was, that was just a 5-minute thing. That only took 5 minutes in court out of the 10 months. About the statistical data. Then it came out about the post-it notes, and same again. That was just a couple of minutes. That was just barely mentioned. Okay, now we've got. Well, we already had post-mortems, but now we've got these causes of death for definite. I mean, obviously, because there's nobody. When I say nobody, no body, as in the group of people, who will now be able to dispute what this team of lead neonatologists have said. And are they now going to go, oh, that was only a small part, that was only a small part of it? I mean, what are they going to resort to say it's going to go back to the commando again?
It's the commando. That's all they've got left. That's all they've got left.
All they've got is their underwear.
For 15 full life tariffs for that. Yeah.
That's what they said about the statistics, wasn't it? Oh, but when it was rubbish, it was, we never, even though that was really a main thing, it really affected the jury, that statistical chart. And then when that was rubbish, they said, oh, we never used it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I just want to make a comment here about Mervyn. He's the one that figured out the blood clot with baby A. I was the one that was in contact with you. So good time, Mervyn. Yeah, the blood clot with
I can't take all the credit.
I think it's a blood clot.
I can't take all the credit. I'm afraid I have to give some to Chat GPT or DeepSeek.
Well, no, you're not a medical person. I remember. I don't know if you remember me. I was the one that was going back and forth with you.
Oh yeah. You were very interesting.
Good find on baby A with that's what it had a blood, although it's a blood clot to the brainstem.
But that's the thing. If someone who's not even a normal member of the public, who's not even medically trained, can tell,
figure it out.
Well. Yeah. Not even that. Just on the timings where the long line came out, and then they start infusing nutrients or whatever, and then the baby collapses shortly after that. It doesn't take a genius to work out the two things are related.
And it went to they think it went to the brainstem. It's just so sad.
Yeah.
So sad on all these babies.
Yeah, with baby A today, although they called it baby 1, didn't it? That's obviously baby A. They posited two potentials, and they leant towards the first one, which is that there was a clot formed at the tip of the catheter, wasn't there? And then once the infusion starts. Yeah.
Right, and the thing is that when you have an IV, in you, you either keep the infusions going or you put in heparin to make sure it doesn't clot. Or Mom also had a clotting disorder. It probably transferred to the baby, in the thing. The baby had clots, and they found a clot in the liver, which would happen before it was born, the whole bit. This is all the stuff that they could have figured out easily, and then Dr. Jerem knew that those babies were coming, and he was telling them how to put the lines in over the phone.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, my God, unless he was just in an emergency with another baby or something like that. And sometimes, you got to do what you got to do. Do we really think so?
But no one's even mentioned the fact that about them doing 2 ward rounds a week. Why is no one pulling them up about this?
Yeah.
Yes,
and they said one of them was on a Sunday, so it was an abbreviate. Everyone knows hospitals, you don't work too much on the weekends. And one was on a Sunday. Too.
Yes, and they were splitting themselves between pediatric departments and obviously neonatology, weren't they? That's what they were doing.
And they had to do the ER, that you call it the A&E. So, or if they had a delivery. So sometimes these junior doctors, interns, residents, whatever, had to cover the A&E, the peds, the NICU, and if there was a problem in the delivery room too with the baby. So imagine having to cover 4 areas.
Well, yes.
I can't imagine doing that. Having to do that, those poor guys.
There's an article probably about a couple of years ago about this, 18 months ago, where it describes a particular weekend at the Countess of Chester Hospital, in which you've got one doctor. You've got one doctor covering all those areas across a weekend period.
That's right, and it happened 4 days after a baby died. Not one of the Lucy babies, but it was 4 days after some other baby died in October of 15 or 16 or something like that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, just taking a step back. Today, the announcement was so good. Everyone's seen it, or everyone will see it, or they will tell someone about it. the wave of, I mean, the public opinion was already shifting really quickly after the first conference. So now after today's, you're on the home straight now. There's no, she has to be out within a couple of months. I mean, the members of the public will not tolerate it.
No, and it had to be the way it was done. It's something that Mark McDonald said a long time ago. You've got to change the public narrative, and it was done. It was similar with the Birmingham Six. It's not going to come from the judiciary. They're not going to do it out the goodness of their heart. They'll sweep it under the carpet.
If they could, they would sweep it under the carpet. That's what they tried to do it.
Yeah, they did. They did. Well, and even very recently, you've got some other kind of useful idiots popping up. Other barristers criticising Michael McDonald, saying he's acting in a poor way, a bad way. But this is all. It's all self-protection. It's the system protecting itself, essentially. I think. Sorry, I don't want to talk too much.
Another thing is, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. I apologize.
No, I need to step back a bit. Yeah, okay. I'll listen. Sorry.
Dr. Gibbs, he was trashed also by that doctor today.
Another award winner, Gibbs.
Yeah. Well, I'm not so sure he wasn't somewhat of a Biden, if you get my drift, but he was. I'm sorry, but basically, it was baby number 7. He was on as the consultant of the week that week, and meaning what a consultant of the week is that they're supposed to be the kind of the watch over during the day shift kind of a situation and make sure, they kind of do that. And he was absent on so many babies, and when he was consultant of the week, so he was either physically and or mentally absent in some of these babies. So it's amazing, especially him and Dr. Hawkness, who was a registrar, was involved in a lot of issues. Poor Dr. Hawkness didn't get, he had problems putting in lines all the time, so he probably wasn't trained. I don't know how well trained it is or anything like that. But again, if you can't put in the line in and you got to talk to the doctor over the phone, the doctor needs to come in.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, to be fair, obviously on premature babies, that everything's smaller, so everything's going to be more difficult. Yes,
and that's especially why you need them. You need to be there with them as they're doing it. I remember, I worked for a high university research hospital, and that. Our version of a consultant would be there with the intern, kind of, okay, you can do this, maybe do this a little here, by their side, kind of a situation. Or if they were running in, or they had another doctor, and you knew they were putting the pedal to the metal, getting in with their cars and stuff like that. So they didn't let these guys, although technically the interns and residents to some degree ran the hospital at night, but those attending doctors took part in their work, and they were there for them when they needed to come in, and they would come in. So again, it's amazing.
Aren't any of the nurses trained to put those lines in? Aren't any of the nurses trained to put those lines in?
No, I don't think that's right.
No, they should not. No, not even in America. Not even in America. You can't put it a long line, which is PICC line. That's the thing where they put it in either the arm or that. It can only be a nurse practitioner.
Gosh,
well, Wendy taught me how to do everything, so she taught me how to put lines in. She taught me everything I know.
Well, she didn't teach you how to put your headphone line in, though, did she?
No, and a long line is different than a regular IV line that you and I would get if we needed some IV antibiotics or some IV fluids. That's a whole different thing versus those umbilical lines and stuff like that, and a long line. So putting a regular IV in it's no problem at all. But the other stuff, you gotta be trained with that.
But towards the end of the conference. Sorry, I heard an echo. Towards the end of the conference, somebody asked a question, and the answer that was given was basically it shouldn't have ever gone to the police in the first place. The whole case should have went to is it the CDOP team, who look into child deaths, and all the professionals look into it first, and they skip the reason they're in that situation is because they skipped that step and went straight to the police. And I think that's, that was the trigger.
Wasn't it Jeremy at one of those conferences that did that? Kind of took a cop at the side. I think that was the first. He kind of like whispered, "Oh, we got
that." Was JRM, I believe.
JRM, yeah. And he was at the conference, but he kind of took him aside. I think that was the initial thing, in a real sneaky, horrible way. Yeah.
I just want to say one thing. I was looking at my notes briefly there, but listening at the same time. It's just that there was a repeated refrain from Dr. Shu Lee today, in which he went through the different babies that they were talking about, and he said this again and again. He said, "Well, let's see what really happened. Let's see what really happened." And he kept on repeating that line, and that sums it up to me, really. In other words, what they said happened, what that prosecution said happened, was just absolute nonsense. And the fact that Evans couldn't find fault. If every baby had to be. That was the position they put themselves in, the prosecution. Every baby had to be stable in order for them to make the case that they made, which was completely artificial.
Well, something also that wasn't mentioned in today's press conference was the revelation that came yesterday from Unheard about the 10 cases that Dewey Evans had that were when Lucy Letby wasn't on shift, and he apparently was saying this baby and that baby had been smothered or killed by this way. So, I mean, should that? I don't think that was even mentioned today, was it?
I don't think it was, and I'm really a bit perplexed about the figures that are being used now. And I just read an article from Sarah Napton in the Telegraph dated yesterday, in which they're talking about that Thirlwall has put out. It's a Thirlwall document saying that there were 18 deaths across this indictment period, which is 2015-2016. Now, the latest FOI from the NHS from 2023 states that there are only 13 deaths, and that's the information that Panorama program went with. And the Panorama program, when I did a couple of videos about this, because a gentleman sent me the complaint he made to the BBC, Panorama come back to him and say Lucy Letby was there. She was on duty for 12 of, originally they said 13 of the 13. Then they adapted it and said it was 12 of the 13.
Yeah, it might have been because they changed hospitals when they died. It's something to do with that, I guess.
I don't think so, because that's something I've done FOIs about, that and I've had confirmation that it should be coded as a death in the hospital, where it happens, and also when it happens as well, in terms of the month. I've had FOIs back about that to confirm. Right. But the curiosity here is that we've got the 2018 mortality statistics, which are at great variance to the 2023 ones. But now you've got Thirlwall using the old statistics, so and they're in contravention to what the NHS allegedly told the BBC for their Panorama program. So it's all up in the air. The stats are all over the shop.
I was looking on some Thirlwall documents, and they had to keep putting like amendments at the bottom with asterisks saying such and such date of death was recorded wrong here and here. There were faults all over the shop.
Well, there were, because in the 2018, I'll just say this a little bit quickly, 2018 FOI, I've said it many times in videos, is that there were deaths that were meant to be showing in August and October 2015, because they end up as murder charges. But there are no deaths showing at all there. There are none. But there are stillbirths showing. And we've got the issue of stillbirths being miscoded deliberately or accidentally on purpose as stillbirths, which is an issue across the NHS apparently.
Yeah, and I think with stillbirths, the baby may not have to be dead when it's born. It could be within a certain time period after born. And I think in some places, and I'm not sure what thing, you may not have to have a death certificate. You may not have to have an inquest if you technically have a stillbirth. So there's a way, to do it. I mean, some of these babies probably had some sort of horrendous congenital anomaly, and you would have expected it. And you don't need all that. The parents don't need all that, because if you have to have an inquest or an autopsy, they're holding on to that baby, and that family needs that baby to bury. So there's a good way to do an autopsy and an inquest, and there's a bad way. And again, and doctors know how to do it. I mean, again, a lot of these are hiding it. And another thing I want to make is that we will never get the full story, because what they documented in the chart may not be what happened. Too, remember McBurney's point? They purposely put that in, making think, oh, I stuck it in where you would do an appendectomy, which is real low. They did that on purpose, versus I stuck it in probably kind of high. So that was a way to deviate. So just because it's in the chart or the way the doctor did it, there's a way to chart that you can hide stuff, and there's a way to chart that you can be, so we'll never know. Never know.
Yeah, I can see that, and the issue, the earlier issue that you brought up there with regard to stillbirths. But these were these were early neonatal babies, so it's like day 1 to day 7, isn't it? And these were actually on the neonatal ward. That I think potentially, my theory was always that there were 2 babies, at least 2, that they'd miscoded as stillbirths in order to hide the figures, which is something there are the reports you can find.
Certificate. Yeah. Was it an error? Was it deliberate? We'll never know. But you know what? It does. Nothing passes the smell test here.
But it's also for the stats. It's not just for it's for the stats of the hospital in terms of the number of deaths on a neonatal ward. And this came up as an NHS-wide issue, and has been reported on as such.
Yeah, you're looking good for your stats. And managers I work with, it was not about the patient. It was about, did I meet the statistical goal? That is all that's important to management. I hate to say that. Not all. But, I mean, that's how you move up the thing. The more, the better you are to make make the data look good, the better you are, because we're all about data too in America.
I was going to do a freedom of information request for, they were saying there was a spike in deaths that was actually bigger than the Countess of Chester.
Well, there were a few. There was the Sherwood Hospital and Blackpool. Well, absolutely.
I would have been interested to see how they dealt with their thematic review. If their one centred around staff that was on duty, and whether or not this thematic review was just something that Brewery had made up, or if it's like a hospital, an NHS template to automatically look for staff who were on duty. I was going to do a FOIA request for that.
I think it was a bespoke thing that Brewery did. I don't think it happened at those other hospitals. I mean, in other words, they weren't looking for a serial killer in the Sherwood Hospital or in Blackpool or any other number of hospitals that have had a similar.
No, I'm not saying they were looking for a killer, but just generally the way that they were going about doing the thematic review.
Yes.
Just the way they went about it.
Yes, indeed. I understand what you mean, Mervyn. Yeah.
So is my mic working?
Yeah, it's fine now. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd go by the notes, wouldn't you? Because whoever's dealing with or whatever happened, you'd be reading the
but what my query is why even look for who's on duty in the first place? I mean, when something goes wrong, that's like the last thing down that you want to worry about.
Yeah,
I mean, until you've actually identified that there's a training issue with a member of staff, why do you even care who's on duty?
Well, you might want to care because they're going to be witnesses, and you're supposed to, anytime there's an event, like in America, we look back. It's just like when an airplane crashes. You want to look back and you want to get all the witnesses, and you're supposed to. And again, Lucy was the one that tried to get all the debrief. You have to have a debrief after a death. The doctors didn't want to do it. Lucy was pushing them to do it too. That's another thing too. So you want to look back, well, what was the chain of events that happened with the crash? And you want to make sure that you did everything correct. And if there were mistakes, then you can figure it out real quickly. Okay, all right, here was the wink link in the chain, and it's not a no fault thing, let's figure this out, and then we'll improve the process kind of a situation. So, and I'm assuming the NHS has the same type of thing too.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was
yeah.
wondering, if it was like a general template that they
Well,
would
you're
use
supposed
everywhere.
to have that debrief very quickly, so everyone knows who everyone was, but at least you've got something so you could go back on to if something kind of comes up too, in kind of a situation too. And I don't know how that, and America's trying to be more and more like kind to people that admit their mistakes. I don't know if that's a problem in the NHS. We have a thing that if you make a mistake and you come up and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake," it is a lot different than if you hide it. It's a whole thing is just trying to get you not to hide it, just to kind of, okay, here was a thing to acknowledge that you're human. So I don't know how bad that
it
is
shouldn't
at the
be a problem
NHS.
over here, because in the public sector, you literally can't get fired. Like, as we've proved from the management, they just get moved sideways or upwards when they make a mistake.
Well,
I mean,
you can get struck off.
yeah.
I've known people get struck off in the private. As I said, it's gone private, and they don't train properly. Absolutely, and people are put in positions they're not able to deal with. And if there's a mistake, a clinical error, which is basically due to disorganisation, then you're risking your pin. And people.
Yeah, but isn't it worse if you don't report it and then get caught?
Right. That's how it is in America.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that. No, it's a slightly different point, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's 12 o'clock here, chaps. Have a great time. I'll see you again.
Cheers. All the best. Thanks very much for coming on, David. All the best. Take care.
Nice to see you.
Lovely to meet you. Lovely to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Really appreciate it. I just what Jenny was just saying there, that came up at the conference towards the end. This idea of the no fault. The no fault recognition that they brought that up.
There's still some of that, but they're trying to switch more. They're trying to say no fault, but obviously people are gonna, they're gonna be human. But the whole thing is you want to admit your mistakes, and you come forward, and then they figure it out. You're allowed, hopefully, but of course, obviously, they're to some degree too. It is it's just as political here as it is over there, but they want to try to make it like as much of a, no, to some degree, no fault. Like David Davis was saying about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's kind of and I guess it also depends. Again, you're each, we're not just one monolith thing like the NHS. It's each company or thing owns this or that or that or that or two, and so each one has their own little way of doing it. And then you're 50 states, each individual state, like the state of Missouri or California, regulates the nurses and doctors too. So there is a little bit of federal oversight, but state has a lot of power too. So state laws can change too. So
but that as what you're saying is quite correct, and it also Jonathan will bear this out, I'm sure. It comes down very much to the culture of the very unit.
Yes.
So the neonatal unit. You work
Yes.
in some places, and the culture is very, as you all know, wherever you work, very supportive, helpful, or not.
Right.
And if that culture of support and help isn't there for whatever reason, because the people leading it are not good leaders, because there's no time or poor practice, then people are not going to admit to their mistakes, because they're probably not going to get support. They're going to get some other result.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And what I noticed at the beginning when I started nursing in 82 and when I finished it just a few years ago, there's a difference in the management. I mean, the cream rose to the top when I started. And before I started, now it's like, oh, I'm lazy. I'm just going to go get an advanced degree so I don't have to deal with bedpans and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And they have their manicures and their nice clothes. They don't even put a uniform on. And God forbid they should leave their office. And it's all about their stats and their stuff, right? The cream doesn't rise, and sometimes it does, but If you want to make it to the, it's the cream. It used to be you were the best of the best. You got promoted. Well, now it's like who you know and what degree you get. It's not necessarily, you're that good.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can I slight change of topic? Can I read something funny?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Please do. We need it.
So here was a comment on crime scene to courtrooms.
Oh, I love that. I love that show. I love that show.
Okay.
Oh, we need this.
Here it goes. Something has to be done to restore public confidence in the guilty verdicts against Lucy Letby. Perhaps
it's got to be done. Yeah, it's got to be done.
Perhaps the author of this YouTube channel could release a statement to the media outlining the most damning circumstantial evidence against Lucy Letby, and pointing out that these medical experts have failed to answer any of it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Is that something you wrote, Mervyn? Did
No,
you write that?
it's not even. I don't like something I would do, but I think they would genuinely. That's a genuine comment from someone.
It's genuine because I think the best comeback from crime scene to courtroom would be to all those experts, including Dr. Shuley, is you weren't at the trial, so you can't say anything. Yeah, you can't say anything because you weren't at the trial, because that's the argument. It's the killer argument now, isn't it? That's always been the killer argument. You weren't there.
Bless Dr. Shuley. What a
love him.
human being.
I
absolutely love him. And he's
what
amazing.
A wonderful
and
human
he's doing
being.
it all he flew over here for free and
you too, Mark. You've done a great job.
Well, do you know there's an absolutely poetic, almost like spiritual level irony here, that they misused his paper, and then he's come back. He's come
to fight him.
And he looks like the most he looks like the guy that would never want to be vengeful, never mean, never cruel, just a nerd. He looks like your typical nerd, and a lot of neonatologists are, because they have to be brilliant. So this nerdy guy doesn't want to get involved, just wants to do the farming, and goes, wait,
how funny was it when that guy from Private Eye said, in your Chinese hospital?
That was a funny moment. But Dr. Shuley was throwing some major shade over Dr. Jayaram, because he said even about the alarms going off, he said, well, maybe you didn't hear them.
I thought that. He knew he wanted to bust up. I can hardly wait. I want to know about that baby. I want to know that baby. Who was that baby that had all he put in the chest tube incorrectly? Didn't even put it in the fifth intercostal space, and that poor baby had butterfly needles in it too. That's the baby I want to know.
Yeah.
I forgot which one that was. I mean, that was. You thought baby A was a screw up, or baby K. This was. That's the one I'm interested in too.
That's right. After today, Dr. Jayaram's way more implicated in the events that followed from what happened with baby K than we ever thought before. Actually, I think.
He's dumber than Brewery. I think he's more incompetent than Brewery with baby O kind of a situation. So.
Yeah, but they're obviously not being self-reflexive about what their own practice is, are they? They haven't been, and they're not. They're not doing that. They don't seem to be.
Well, it's hard to be, Mark. It's hard to be when you get that big contract. Was it BBC or ITV? He's putting his makeup on so he can look good in the all the shows and stuff. And the reason I remember him is that I followed the Charlie Gard thing. Real closely because of the ethical thing, and he was the big guy on your version of Good Morning America who tried to explain the ethical thing, and he was trying to make it, and this was during that whole time that was going on, and he was trying to make the NHS look good when it came to the Charlie Gard so far as ethical. So he was just sucking up to the NHS. I'll send you the video.
Yeah,
just how you can read between the lines how he was trying to make it. Piers Morgan was trying to make it look like the NHS was being bad and cruel and stuff, and Jayaram was trying to make, the NHS has the baby's,
best interest.
Best interest, and so he was sending the message to the NHS: you cover me for Lucy Letby, and I'm covering you for Charlie Gard on international TV, because that stuff all came to America. That's how I
did
know
it? Yeah,
about.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Charlie Gard was
Yeah,
huge
that was a big. That
because
was a
Trump
big
came
thing.
on and
Yeah.
said, "Oh, just fly the kid over here, big deal," kind of a deal.
Yeah.
So people here in America were not too happy with it because they didn't want Trump to get involved with your situation, and stuff. So it was big news here, and it was a big ethical thing because there's a very conservative following that follows Trump that is much into you do whatever you can to save a child, even
Yeah.
if it is kind of a situation. So it was massive news here, kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, Wendy, whether with your background about knowing Lucy Letby and remembering her. What was I going to say about that? When you first heard about it, when did you follow the trial at all? Was there a point in that you?
I did follow it in a sort of superficial way, out of sort of, well, the same interest as everybody else, really. I just assumed superficially that she was guilty. That's what, I mean, it seemed odd because she, like I said to Jonathan, there was nothing that you would see in her. Obviously, it doesn't mean you can't become a serial killer, but there were no red flags. They're, quiet, normal,
Well, I think people have tried to make documentaries about her, and obviously the ones that there haven't been many. I mean, like true crime ones, and there haven't been many or any, because when they go out and they ask the flatmates, they ask the friends, everyone comes back going, she was normal, and so they've obviously got. It's the things that you don't hear about.
No.
That don't make it into the documentary, because they obviously can't make a documentary with everyone saying, "Oh, she was normal."
No, and I think her parents were very quiet. Generally, people. I mean, I know her dad got involved and got angry, and I could kind of get that over her sort of being pushed out of the unit and whatever. But they're very quiet people, and you have to remember that if you don't know Hereford's a pretty small place, relatively speaking, and everybody in their local area would have known who they were. It's not a place to be anonymous in. So that must have been very difficult for them as well. I don't live there anymore, so I don't know. But I mean, I know where they lived, and they're not there now. But
next to the graveyard.
It must have been,
that's her.
Must have been just terrifying for them.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Well,
I've got to be honest. The only question that I still kind of don't understand, but I think that there is a possible explanation for, is the documents that she had at home. Now, I don't know, when they're saying handover reports, like in a nursing term, that could mean, just a bit of paper that we used to write patients' names down.
I think also they were keeping
the report,
it. I think they were keeping it as a log of their own overtime as well, for when they're filling out sheets the next morning and stuff.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't have used that, but I mean, when I was nursing, which was a while ago, you had a report. You made a few notes of yourself about that patient and something that was due to happen or had happened, and you stuck it in your pocket in case you needed to refer to it. And I mean, I went home with those all the time, but I mean, I just destroyed them,
Right.
So I wonder whether, my thoughts are, did she keep some things because she thought she might need them at some point?
Yeah.
I'm wondering about that.
Because
to protect herself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Protect herself.
That's a possibility. Because when she was asked, she said, which made me think about something else, that she liked to collect paper. Now, that kind of sounds weird to a lot of people, but I think it's possible, and I'm not any kind of diagnostic person here, maybe she's slightly autistic.
I think mildly.
Exactly. It's a spectrum, and that
Well, Black Squareable did a very, very good interview, a good video on this possibility, and I think she probably is a little bit autistic.
So, you know, we've all got our funny little ways, you know, and, you know, maybe in some perfectly innocent sense, she kept some kind of you know, bits of paper record for.
It's just it's probably just a habit. Like you take because she had 200 and something of them, 230 odd. It's just you get people get into a routine.
Yeah, yeah.
She puts it in her pocket. She gets home. She empties her pocket here. They pile up. It's just a habit. It's just a routine.
Well, this is it, and I think it's sad. Well, not it's more than sad. It's tragic that kind of didn't seem to be really addressed properly. And I think the fact that I like to collect paper, you know, wasn't the greatest answer to that, to people looking on.
Well, what is it? Like, yeah, but what is the answer? If it's to you, it's just a non-issue. I mean, how do you answer it? That she just said they came home with her answer was they came home with me, as in, you know, it was.
Yes. I don't think it's suspicious personally. I just think it's a kind of weird thing that somebody does. But it's very easy to see how people who have got no open mind to any other possibility would think, oh, wow, why would you collect those papers?
And then another thing about if she may be we're all a little on the spectrum to some degree, but if she is, it sounds like she's extremely smart, and that helped her do all that stuff that you have to do to figure out, you know, with the complexities of those neonates. So she may have been a little bit on the spectrum in a brilliant way too, you know? Yeah. And plus she may not be able to, and again, she may not be the best to respond to things, but darn, she could figure out those babies.
Yeah.
And plus she may not have responded to the doctors exactly the way they wanted to do it.
I didn't get any sense of autism or Asperger's or anything.
It might be just slightly,
Me personally, I didn't.
Yeah.
Notice. I didn't get the sense of that.
I'm not saying she is. I'm saying that, you know, like you say, there's a very mild spectrum that may just involve people doing certain minor things that other people might think were a bit weird. I mean, apparently in the one report of her failing an assessment, the tutor had written that she was poor at picking up non-verbal clues from parents. Which is also, I mean, it's a minor thing.
Yeah, and we're all to some degree on the spectrum. We're all to some degree on it. And so she just might be just a little more. Who cares?
Those things don't make you a killer.
No,
they don't.
Yeah, and imagine if she actually did have any sort of character flaw, because everything so far she's come out. When they've looked into her internet search history and things, she's come out so squeaky clean. Imagine if they got into her home and then they found out that she was into, or she'd visited one porno site or something. Oh, that would be it. That would be no chance.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree.
And she sounded like just a kind. And she would remember the things. I mean, don't you? You know, there are patients that you have and families that you have that you fall in love with. And I want to know about certain patients, what they're doing now, and they could have been 30 years from now. So you can't blame her for more looking on Facebook and stuff. Just, are they okay? Are they okay?
Yeah, and she's a 25-year-old person. That's her world.
In a very difficult situation.
Yeah, I know people who have kept in contact with their surgeons like 20 years after the operation, just to say thanks every Christmas.
I remember back in 2023 when a video that really made a big impact was an interview between Dr. Scott McLachlan and Professor Norman Fenton, in which Dr. Scott McLachlan, who had worked as a nurse mentor, so he trained as a nurse and then was a nurse mentor, and he was saying very clearly then that he would advise nurses, even after they've qualified for the first few years, to take these kind of documents home and also do for it's an aspect of sort of the self-reflective
and the recertification to get their life to continue their life. They have to do that.
And a self-reflection of practice as they went along.
Yeah.
So there were justifications for it. That was his point.
Yeah, and I think actually somebody's put in the chat that this has been misrepresented in a lot of press by them calling them medical records, which
they were
not what they were at all.
And there's another sorry to interrupt again, but Operation Merlin Falcon spotted this thing about that handover notes were being done by recordings at some point, so people necessarily brought them home. They necessarily brought them home on their mobile phones. That's what they were actually doing at some point in that.
I used to do, when we did, of course, this was the 80s and 90s. We would have, it's that way, sometimes you just cannot verbally give the report to the nurse. So sometimes you just put it on a tape, a cassette tape, and you do the thing, and everyone can listen to it. And then you tape over it and over it. So there may not be, I don't think they would keep it. It's just a way that instead of writing it down, you can just give it real quick as a verbal way to give a report. That's what we did. So I'm thinking that might be the tape situation.
And also, like, people were going, she's got no respect taking these medical documents home, and I'm thinking, how much privacy do premature babies need? Like, why does it matter if someone if that data leaked out somewhere? There's nothing on it, is it? It's not like there's a credit card number on there, is it?
No, but I mean, it's a very different thing to talk about handover notes and medical records, isn't it? That's why when they get referred to incorrectly as medical records, that's a different.
And another thing about how I am not happy at all with that nurse manager, the thing, she let them do a written handover, tape it on the baby's bed, and leave early, and no one was watching the baby. So they could. Right. I mean, can you imagine that happening on your nursing unit? I mean, okay, it's okay to leave early if things are slow, but you then do a verbal report to that nurse, and that nurse would take your baby for you and just take on it. And no one was watching those babies.
What if the next person didn't turn up?
They didn't. If it didn't finish, you could leave early your shift. So someone would watch the baby for the rest of the shift.
Oh, okay. Right.
So no one was watching this baby for the last couple of hours, maybe. And another thing is that depending on where the baby was, in Unit 1, it had a highly qualified nurse, and then some of them, they're calling them nurses, and they're more of an aide, not a nurse. So some of these babies were being cared for by wonderful people. I loved my nurses' aides. They were wonderful, but they were not registered nurses, and they did not know how to do it. So these babies were sometimes in these areas that were just people trained to feed and diaper a baby and bathe, but didn't have, the training to see. Although some of them, let me tell you, some of the aides I work with were better than some of the registered nurses. But again, and then Lucy, of course, anytime there's a code or a crash, you come running, whether it's your baby or not. It doesn't matter. And if it's not your baby, the most qualified takes over in that crash, whether or not it's your baby or not. And everyone knows their place in a code. Again, whether or not it's your patient or not. Some people do this, some people that. It's the most qualified, automatically take it. Everyone stands back, and we all know our place. So that's why they're saying, well, Lucy was running to it. Of course you do that.
That's right. Can I just mention Baby K, because what was missing from, and this is on Jabe's channel, and that video that was done, and I can't remember the lady's name who did this amazing video, which really puts it into serious doubt that it was Lucy Letby in that room at all. And that's not something that the panel addressed today. They didn't go down that route. They went down the route of the tube being the wrong size. But I thought that was an incredible piece of work by whoever did that video. I can't remember the name. And
Dr. Lee did mention, the nurse said, I heard the alarms. Remember?
There's that aspect of it.
He did say, you're all of it. The nurse, and I think the nurse had left temporarily to go to the maternity ward to just to update the parents and say, okay, baby, this is what's going on. I think weren't they ready? They were trying to transfer this baby, if I'm not mistaken,
I think
to a higher level of care.
In the court, Lucy Letby had no memory of this interchange between herself and alleged interaction between herself and Dr. Jayaram. That she had two other babies to look after in a different room.
Yeah.
And if you look at the video on Jabe's channel, Jabe's Allowed. I don't know if everybody knows the channel. And this is video that was done about it, in which they look at all the logistics of what those nurses were doing, because based on which babies they were responsible for. I don't think she was even in that room.
It doesn't matter who was in there. No one done anything wrong. So.
No, he was in there, and he was trying to reintubate.
I made that point before.
Yeah,
as well, but nonetheless.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No. I didn't want to interrupt you. He was in the room while that baby coded because he was trying to reintubate. He put in the wrong size. The wrong tube was put in. It should. In fact, they're saying a lot of hospitals don't even carry a 2.0 ET tube, and the baby needed a 2.5. It needed a bigger one because you can't cuff like an adult thing. So air comes out. So the wrong tube was put in,
wrong size,
and he was trying to re-intubate it because he knew the baby was going to over to Aero Park, and he knew that they would find out, why is this got a 2.0 and not a 2.5? So he was going to be called out. So he was re-intubating, and he didn't know what he was doing. And again, he was using the bag, and the bag wasn't given enough pressure, and he didn't even know that this was a safety thing. So it just shows you what an idiot he was.
Well, and what Mervyn said, I got into a thing on Twitter about that, and I was saying about that video. Well, if there's no crime, there's nothing deliberate happening. It doesn't really matter whether it was her or it wasn't. And so I get exactly what you mean, Mervyn. But it was just, I think it was a salient point that it probably wasn't even her in the room. That's how bad it is in terms of Jayaram's testimony. I believe it is likely it wasn't her. When you look at which staff are looking after which babies and the timings that were said, but then this is the trouble. They were going back like 7 or 8 years and trying to work out who was exactly in which room and whether an alarm was going or not.
And you can't remember. You
can see the room for error or misremembering or construction of the event after the event is massive, isn't it? It's huge, the ability, but that's what they did. They've constructed this. So, are people aware of this detective sergeant and the notes stating that Evans was accusing Lucy Letby of, well, not Evans was saying certain other babies were potentially attacked that Lucy Letby wasn't on duty for, and then they had to let that go. Are you aware of that? Because
that's the article yesterday.
Yeah, that's the article yesterday. So
it's the first time I saw it too. Yeah.
Is that person a whistleblower, or where have those notes come from? I still don't know. I don't know where those notes have come from. Is it someone who's left the police? Because they surely can't stay within the police after they've revealed that, can they? I mean, that wasn't made clear. I think it's
that person has a conscience. Maybe they're just, they can't sleep. They haven't been able to sleep at night for the last 10 years.
Yes, I think that is likely. If that's what they've done, if they've had those notes privately and they've got them in their possession and they've handed them over, then yes, it's a person with a conscience.
Oh, but they have handover notes. Is that legal? Handover notes? No, you know what I mean.
Also,
exactly,
David Davis mentioned a few days ago in Parliament that the police were refusing to give him Dewey Evans's reports and updated
isn't that
reports as well.
Court?
So I don't know if the defence got hold of those yet or not.
Yes, because there was a judge made an edict or whatever it is, or an order to say that they have to do it, don't they?
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, apparently they've made that order, but whether it's been fulfilled or not, I don't know. I mean, isn't it weird that he's come up with these other reports, and we've got this issue of Evans making another potentially 50 allegations of deliberate harm, which have not been followed up by the police, or have been followed up to the point where they say there's no further action on these. So
how much did he make money-wise from doing all
50
this?
grand or something.
I mean, it's okay that you
I
testify
think
and
it's
make
more
money.
than
That's
that.
fine, but
Yeah,
how
I think
much?
it's more than. I think
50
it's a lot.
grand
I think it's a. I think it's.
pounds?
I think it's a lot of money. It's a hell of a lot of money. It's something of the order of £400 an hour while he's writing reports. £500 an hour when he's in court, for the period he's in court. So it's a very considerable amount of money, and he wrote a large number of reports.
Oh God,
So
he just did it probably just for the money then too. The more reports, the more he get, like, billable hours. Would that be a situation?
Yeah, of course. I mean, exactly that.
So he was just trying to make more money, because remember, he was sending his kids to college and buying them cars. That's why he did this, right? Wasn't that the reason he said he liked to do it?
He basically said, this has put my children through college or paid off their student debts.
It would have an influence indirectly. Whether or not you could say he was doing it, I think he actually believes in the tripe that he says himself, but I think he was obviously influenced by the money on a subconscious level.
Oh, I think it's a conscience level. I really did. There's something nasty about him.
Well, I think he knows. I think he knows. He knows Gibbs, or he knows Jairam, or he knows Breary, or he knows all of them. We know that Stephen Breary was talking about what he describes as our problem, and he was going to Alderhay and discussing it with paediatricians there. So it was out of the box. It was out of the confines of the County Chester Hospital.
Who was it? Southall, the guy that came after Meadows, that had that fake clinic and
Southall,
thing. The GMC was going to lose his license. Gibbs, Jairam, Sandy Bowen, and Brewery. I don't know if Brewery now, or no, fourth of them signed letters of protest of having them remove their license. There's a kind of somewhat of a connection that way.
Oh, there is a connection. The only person I know for sure is Dr. Jairam signed that. Yeah, there are others.
And Gibbs signed letters, another one.
Yeah, another
Sandy
one.
Sandy Bowen
right,
signed one, and I'm not sure Brewery did or not, but they all signed you can't take his license away, even though that was the Sally Clark lady, or he had something to do with that, or one of the other, or something else. Maybe it was Meadows. I think he came after Meadows.
I get them mixed up because you've got Angela Cannings and you've got Sally Clark and you've got there's various victims of Southall and Meadow. And basically Evans has come along and said, "Hold my beer," and he's gone a whole lot further than both of them put together.
Oh, but you're Mark, using an American phrase, "Hold my beer." Thank you.
Oh, right. I didn't.
That's the American phrase, "Hold my beer." That's a Southern thing, honey. So it's about.
I didn't know it was.
Mark,
I didn't know
hold my beer.
In practical terms, Mark, how I can't see this is going to be a quick. I'm very depressed that it's going to take a long time, even if by legal standards it's quick. I mean, I can't see she's going to be out of prison for a couple of years. I don't think it's going to be. Why
oh my God!
It's going to be quick?
See, America would be hysterical.
The public pressure, they won't be able to keep it going for long at all. 2 months tops, I think.
Really? But the process will they can't just release her from prison. I mean, it's going to have to go to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal are not, for something as big as this, they're not going to just relent. It's going to be a protracted process, surely.
They'll fast track it. They already had a team of people in the was it CCRC ready, like poised, waiting for the application. Yeah. They're ready to fast track everything.
Do you think they are? Do you really think they are?
Well, it's so weird, and this is what comes up with that question about Thirlwall, isn't it? That I couldn't understand the word that David Davis says, because he said he wrote to Lady Thirlwall and he received the type of response that he would have received from high up members of the civil service. I didn't understand the word he used, but basically it was a knockback, kind of a blocking action from Lady Thirlwall, and because of this idea that the Thirlwall inquiry is acting on what they call a false prospectus. In other words, it's acting as though there were some murders, and there obviously weren't any. So we're in such a weird situation now that this Thirlwall inquiry is due to present its findings, I think, in autumn of this year, isn't it? And yet at the same time, everything that the Thirlwall's inquiry is about essentially is being kind of undermined by this other process.
Well, they told them to delay it in the first place, didn't they? They said put it on the back burner because we're appealing, and they didn't want to hear it, did they?
And no, who is this lady Thurl? She's some prominent lawyer or judge or what? Judge. Why did they choose her?
Yeah, she's a very, very sort of allegedly and very eminent lady justice.
Okay. High up but judge. Is she part of the good old boy thing, or do you think she might be one of those that might? Okay, I'm going to do the right thing. We don't know yet.
She's old school and she does things exactly by the book. At the very beginning of her inquiry, she said that she did not like the noise that was coming from people who were supporting Lucy Letby, and so she won't change her view. She will just she's not even going to entertain any consideration she's innocent in her inquiry.
What an arrogant woman! Well, we have judges like that too here in America, but arrogant. And you think just being a woman too, and I'm not to knock you guys out, but there is a certain sisterhood with women, and that's
not.
The
reason I'm saying no, there's not. Because it seems to be,
or there should be,
all the ones that think she's guilty. It seems to, in my experience, it's mainly women who are on the guilty side, right, and I don't know why that is. I mean, you've got Judith Morris, you've got Liz Hull, you've got Dr. Susan Oliver. There were 8 out of the 12 jury were women.
Okay.
And I think that played a factor.
When I say the word woman, it's not your chromosome. It is like being a man, being a woman. We protect each other. Those aren't women. Those are nasty people. And women can be nastier to other women than men can be in a weird way. You know what I mean, Wendy. So those are not women. Those are nasty things. So yeah.
Well, can I just mention something? I went back to Twitter on a kind of a new account, which kind of anonymous, and I'm just looking at some of the trolls that are responding today to today's press conference.
Give us a laugh.
And
please do.
Well, the abiding feeling that I have about them is that I think they're organised. I can't believe there's this number of nutters because they're all saying the same kind of things. It feels orchestrated. I might be.
And women are good organisers.
Well, I'm just wondering whether it's.
They are. They're good organisers, right?
Could be AI.
I'm just wondering whether it's coming from the police. I'm wondering whether it's coming from the deep state, whatever people might think that is. I've got my tinfoil hat on now. It's that time of night. But I'm wondering, there's something quite orchestrated about the trolling, is what I'm saying, over the last 2 years. Something quite organised about it.
Also, when she is exonerated, if and when she is exonerated, there's so much out there on the internet and past articles of that have said negative things about her. And on top of that, there's every day, if you look on YouTube, type in Lucy Letby, every day there's loads and loads of AI driven stuff that just regurgitates all this negative narrative. And how are they going to correct all of that? Because there's just been so much, the narrative has been the same for so long, and there's so much out there. How are they ever going to
They can do it. I don't know if you guys heard about that horrible plane crash in Washington, D.C., where a helicopter hit a thing.
Definitely.
Well,
it's awful.
Not to point names here, but there's a reason the helicopter pilot's name was withheld, is so they could scrub stuff, if you get my drift. So it can be done.
Oh, I know.
There'll be some
stuff. It was one of Biden's aides, so it was a woman.
Yeah. Huh?
It was one of Joe Biden's aides. It was a
woman.
And it was a white woman.
I have military connections, just FYI. It could have been a loved one that I've known of that could have been hit in the plane. So the best and the brightest were not put in our military. And there was no reason for her to have reached the level of captain before age 30. And she had a $500,000 home in Washington, D.C. There's a lot that will be found out that isn't good. And there are, I won't go there. But yeah, so that, you know, again, you hold my bear. When you
Hold my
say,
beer,
guys
hold my
saying,
beer.
hold your bear when you come to the UK, because America can outdo anything. You get my drift.
Mark, can
Yeah,
I say,
hold your beer.
can I say how much we absolutely adore your funny videos, your comedy videos?
Oh, bless you.
Oh,
Thank you
yeah.
very
In fact, I
much.
mean,
Thank you.
a lot of people who don't know much about the case, I show them the videos and they just roar with laughter. But
Really?
actually,
Gosh.
that got Wendy in as well, because I mean, Wendy sort of found out about Dewey Evans and then saw some of your videos and just found them absolutely hilarious. So can you do some more of them? I mean, your latest one, the crime scene to courtroom, were just absolutely phenomenal.
I took them off because I'm always ambivalent about them, because I'm concerned that people think I'm treating this as a light subject, and it's not. I found this one of the most intense. It's such a haunting, overwhelming situation. This, isn't it? Really, and I think so many of us, and I think probably all of us, we feel that way about it.
Yeah, but
once you're attached
Mark,
to it.
you've got enough serious stuff out there and emotional stuff that everyone knows how you feel about it. So you're not going to discredit anything.
I know, but it's just
everyone knows how genuine you are. So
no, and we will be your expert witnesses, and we won't be a Dewey Evans.
I need some expert witnesses. Yeah,
we will be, and if you could do a redneck one, I can help you. I can talk you through it like a redneck.
And I'll text you about
American redneck one. It would be awesome.
No, it's. I mean, I think there's definitely a place for it, because these characters involved in it. I mean, somebody like Evans is, and somebody like Detective Hughes. I mean, they're kind of primed to be for satire, really, because Hughes the Operation Hummingbird video is such a piece of absurdity, really. It's embarrassing, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's just ridiculous. I mean,
and,
honestly,
ridiculous. And another thing is that us in the healthcare field, we use sarcasm and black humor to get through the darkest things. You don't want to know what we say behind closed doors, and it's a coping mechanism.
I can understand
that. We have to have that. We're some of the funniest people and blackest humor people are in healthcare.
Yeah.
But again, we have to know how to use it too. But again, do it if it makes you feel good, and it's a coping mechanism that you do. But there's an appropriate place to do it, and not. But us nurses and doctors.
Talking of that, I mean, I don't know how much you know about Phil Hammond's comedy career, because he is an absolutely hilarious comedian. He actually does stand-up comedy shows, which I've been going to for 10, 20 years.
And he gave himself some new material today, didn't he, with the Chinese comment?
He did.
And watch Dr. Glockenflecken. You watch Dr. Glockenflecken on YouTube. Glockenflecken. It's an eye disease. Glockenflecken with a G. He is really good at doing funny things. He's an eye doctor. And Glockenflecken is eye disease. That's not his real name. And he does real good, funny things, and he shows you what the different physicians are like. A neonatologist is a lot different than a brain surgeon. And there are different, different personalities, and he does a wonderful thing about what a neonatal nurse is. And essentially, they're there to protect, and he does wonderful stuff. So Glockenflecken, GLAU, whatever. But he even does an impersonation of a neonatal nurse, which is exactly what a neonatal nurse is. They're extremely protective. They will, you don't want to deal with neonatal nurses. I mean, they will kill you or tackle you before you even get close to that incubator, as they should. So that's why Lucy was so protective of these kids.
Yes,
they are the most protective.
Absolutely.
And really into like the individual, like, oh, well, 1 cc, 2 cc, 0.cc, and again, all that calculations they have to do with medications. I had nothing to do with children, and I was never a neonatal nurse. I was always an adult nurse. I did chart reviews on neo and the NICU. That's why I know about it. And I feared going back into the NICU because sometimes I had to get some information to do it. And I was like, okay, I washed my hands. I don't have a cold, and I could look at the babies, but I could never get close to the babies, and I wouldn't dare because I would have been, as they should have. They were the most wonderful but protective. But I remember the neonatologists in there, and they respected those nurses, and they worked like this because they knew if they didn't work like this, that baby would die. And I did chart review on the most wonderful neonatal unit that I don't remember any baby dying that wouldn't have been expected to due to some sort of congenital anomaly.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jenny. And I was going to ask Wendy, what area of nursing that you were doing, and whether you had any interactions with like the neonatal units and things like this.
I was an adult nurse as well.
Yes.
I mean, the neonatal unit was part of our training. As a student nurse, we were there for a short time, but as a student. But it's an area like ITU, like adult ITU nursing, where the nurses have a lot of responsibility, as they do in a lot of places. But you're dealing on the whole with sick children. In adult ITU, you're dealing with very sick people, and very families that are just under such stress and strain. So you're a nurse, you're a therapist to the family and a nurse to the patient. Yeah. And another thing about these babies that you can, even if you touch them a little bit, you could break their bones. Yeah. You have to handle them as if they are just the most delicate and porcelain of things. I'd scare the tar out of me. I wouldn't want to go near one. So. No, they are. My own daughter was very premature, and we spent a long time in there as parents. And they are very fragile. But I find it, that lots of parents, we focus on the parents, obviously the babies that have sadly died. But Lucy would have had interactions with hundreds of other families. Yes. I'm sure she did brilliantly. Yes. But there's all this focus on these, and it's very sad, really. I'm sure there are loads of parents out there that remember her as, and they will remember her because people do remember. I remember the nurses that cared for my daughter. I had a daughter that almost died. So, they're just, but again, a lawyer now, fighter from the beginning. So
we're not hearing from because they're saying she would have looked after, because the police were looking into like 4,000 babies or something. So she obviously would have looked after thousands of babies. And when we just didn't hear from all the parents where they said she's a wonderful nurse, did fine. I mean, we never heard the other side.
No, I bet we will, though. I bet we will now. I
hope we will. I hope we will.
So, because there has to be that other side. Because if she was this terrible, awful person, then long before this, parents would have been complaining. Her colleagues would have been complaining. Yeah. And, it just makes no sense now, does it? It makes no sense.
And I don't know if you've looked at the testimony of some of these nurses. Not all of her colleagues were so kind to her in the testimony. Some of them, there's one in particular, I won't name her name, but she, I think she was hiding her own. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Really?
I think she was lazy, and I think she didn't like Lucy, and she had a thing in. There was a reason. She was baby Eve's nurse on the day shift, if you get my drift. And I'm trying to look in who she was, what other baby she was, because I don't think I question, if she was keeping a good eye on these babies and left Lucy with a bit of a mess too. And that was her way of covering herself. She threw her under the bus in some of the testimonies. And I'm seeing some of the anonymous nurses, and there's a reason they're anonymous, unlike the consultants. It was just to protect themselves. So
right. I mean, if Lucy is somebody that's going to report doctors in terms of, well, not report doctors, but make Datix reports about things that go wrong, then she's probably going to put she's going to be the focus
She's going to do the nurses
of.
too.
Yeah, probably. Well, there's that, and also the fact that she feels like an outlier to other people who wouldn't make Datix reports about those doctors and those problems that go wrong.
Oh, with Baby A, she asked Jerram if we should do a Datix, and he said no. Baby A.
Yep.
That was the brainstem
right.
to the thrombus of the brainstem, and they couldn't put the things in.
Yes, indeed, yeah. So I mean, that's just. Oh my goodness! There's so much. This is such a. I think the echoes of this. When Lucy Letby is exonerated, it's going to be absolutely extraordinary. It's going to be extraordinary.
But in every way, because it's going to absolutely rocket the legal profession, but it's also going to rocket the medical profession. And I think the sort of miscarriage is going to lay wide open the world of miscarriages of justice and how they occur. And again,
absolutely.
That's an enormous area, which I hope, because it's such a flagrant case, that it does cause change that will be properly change practice forever.
America is always in trouble because we have, depending on what state you're in, you have death penalties, and we've put to death people that were innocent. So this might this will be a good thing for because America doesn't have a clean nose in this either. But we do have the death penalty here, and that's a worldwide big thing too. So God knows, thank God Lucy wasn't convicted in Texas, because she'd be dead in about 2 years.
Yeah, that annoyed me extra because
if it was a federal thing, she'd be dead in a year.
Yeah. Because I actually think that the death penalty is a good idea. Thankfully, we don't have it in this country.
But you got to watch how you do it, though, too.
Yeah,
there are some people that have done it.
But she would have been given the death sentence. And about the sentencing, they gave the Southport killer less than they gave Lucy Letby. I mean, what does that tell you?
Well, but also, isn't it taking that off the news now, and then there's something else that can go on, so Lucy can go on? Because it was a big to-do about the Southport. I remember that made American news about that, when those stabbings happened. So won't that take that off the news now, and then now they can focus on Lucy? What a miscarriage of justice this was, hopefully.
I think they want to bury the story, I imagine. I don't know whether they want to keep covering it, or if the mainstream media are loving it, or if they want to, or if they're embarrassed. I don't know if they're embarrassed by it because all of the mainstream media have done the coverage wrong.
But it wasn't mainstream that got all the stuff out about Southport. It was all the social media stuff. So now social media, this will replace that, because it was all social media that was talking about Southport, and where all the anger was coming from. It wasn't mainstream, wasn't it? That's the feeling I'm getting.
Okay. But yeah, just on a side note, I don't know, because if the mainstream media are going to be embarrassed, or if they are going to want to cover the story of her being innocent now, or if they're just going to be too embarrassed.
Well, one thing about the Trump, and I won't say how I voted with the Trump and the Harris thing, the whole mainstream media was all for Harris and made Trump look like some blathering idiot. Cruel. And now that they've all been called out, they're all slowly going, Trump's not so bad. So maybe it might be that
it might swing. Because
our media has swung.
Everything turned on a dime, as they say over there, very quickly. So it might be the same here.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a perfect man, and there's a lot of faults. But oh boy, we definitely did not put our best candidates up. But he's cleaning house, and he's cleaning house with Elon Musk. And, Elon Musk sent a tweet out not too long ago that was a big deal in the UK. I'm wondering if he could get a hold of this story too and put a tweet out.
About Tommy Robinson. Yeah, I was wondering if he was going to tweet about, if someone was going to give him a heads up about the Letby case. But
and if he does, that's big news. So, and Elon, he ain't afraid to do anything. So hopefully Elon will get involved with this kind of situation. So he knew he stirred the pot in the UK, and he's not afraid to stir the pot again.
Mark, I was saying about the
Sorry,
media.
yes, I just
Yeah. Whilst you were away, I was saying about the media coverage. Do you think they're going to be keen to cut to, because they've got a brand new big story?
Yes,
or,
I do.
Or are they going to be embarrassed because of the way that they covered it?
I think they're like goldfish with a short-term memory thing.
Yeah,
in other words, it's a new story, it's a new vista, it's a new opening, and this is a fantastic opportunity for them to talk about the new story. And they're going to go all for that, and that will be there'll be a gravitational pull towards that now, because it's irrepressible now. After that meeting yesterday, after that convention or convening of those experts, this is something, a silly question probably, but those experts weren't in that room, were they? They were just being referred to on the board, as it were.
Right, and that's right. We're talking cream of the cream.
Because they're
I
international.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, international
Karolinski
ones.
Institute.
Yeah,
Oh my God, Karolinski. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, these guys are awesome.
Institute. That was that one. There was one in
Swedish one. There's one from
the
Japan.
Swedish one. The German,
Hello, there's Harvard,
Chinese.
Boston,
Chinese.
Yeah. There's Boston Children's Hospital. That's Harvard. Okay, it doesn't get better than that.
But okay, let's be fair now. But on the other side, you got Evans. I mean, sorry,
Welsh national now.
I'm sorry, but you've got Evans and you've got Detective Hughes, so there's no competition really.
So you got Sherlock Holmes and what? Sherlock Holmes and Jonas Salk.
PC Plod, PC Plod, because it's just I don't know. It's been such a debacle. It's oh my God! What is
Mark,
it?
Has any of the mainstream media contacted you for?
I think you ought to. You're going to be in. There's going to be a Netflix, and you need.
I've been interacting with Anouk Curry, who was at the meeting today, who asked one of the questions, and her question was around the subject of medical negligence cases, and I just happened to send that FOI response to her the other day, or yesterday actually, and so I've been interacting with her and Felicity Lawrence a little bit, but back a bit, just in terms of FOIs, really nothing, but it needed what they brought to bear today, which is an international panel of experts. That was what was required, isn't it? Really,
blue ribbon team.
Yeah,
but exactly.
What I think is that Netflix ought to do The Crown, Lucy version, and you know how each episode they had something from someone's point of view, the main thing. And with you being one of the first ones, if not the first one, I think you ought to be in one of the, that episode from your focus point. Seriously, they had this person and that person and that thing. So Mark, I think they ought to. You're in Lucy's version of The Crown, because this is going to be some sort of Netflix or whatever. Wasn't Jerome working on a Netflix thing or something? Yeah.
Dr. Giant was meant to be hooked up with a guy called Jed Mercurio. Jed Mercurio, who's done some very, very popular series, one called Line of Duty, which is a brilliant series, and other things like that. And that's kind of gone on the back burner at the moment, because they don't know what the script's going to be, and it's not going to be what it originally was.
Who's going to play you, Mark? Who do you want to play you?
Me, but I think Dr. Jayaram was probably going to play himself in that.
We want the new and the good version that's going to come on. So who do you want to play you? Come on.
I'm going to melt back into. I started my channel, as it were. I was just with my back garden, like growing plants in the back garden, and sitting in a church and reading out Psalms. So I'm going to go back to that. Go back into complete obscurity. That's what I want to do.
Again, when they did the episode,
I mean, even more obscurity. But
I think Gary Oldman should play you.
Gary Oldman.
Yeah. or Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy. Yeah, there we go.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You flatter me, but it's a bizarre. it's been a crazy for us all, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
It's a journey that I sort of saying to my friend and other people I've talked to about it is that once it grabbed you, what the realization of what they've done and what they've done to this poor young girl, young woman. Once it's grabbed you, you can't let go of it. It doesn't let you go. It doesn't let you go.
No. And I don't know if you're a little bit on the ADHD, or some people that are ADHD, one of the
Probably,
hallmarks,
yeah.
I'm a little bit too, is that you have a very sense of justice and you can't let it go. And that's besides being ADHD, having a hard time focusing on things or something like that, one of the hallmark signs is that justice is black and white, and once you find injustice, you can't let it go.
Yeah, I mean, I think like other people, that there's a sense that I felt to talking to people, and there's different elements of it. And one of the elements is that a lot of people have had injustice in their own lives. They've been in work situations where they've been accused of things, or they've been badly treated in different ways. They've been bullied in different ways, and this is, I've always felt this is a bullying situation gone stratospheric,
Yeah. And I'm the narc in my life. Fine.
Yeah.
I could care less now. I could care less now.
Well, I'm glad
this has helped me with that.
Well, that's fantastic that you're speaking here tonight, Jenny, and really wonderful to see, and everybody in the chat, and great to see Mervyn and Jonathan and everyone else has spoken. It's just I feel this is something. It's something spiritual. This is something spiritual, and it is on that level. And this isn't just one example of many things that we're trying to address at the moment, really, in our world.
I agree with you. How close do you live to All Saints? I guess you can't say it though, but
I just wanted to say to you, Mark,
so.
in my last letter to Lucy, I did mention you and say to her what an amazing job you've done. So I don't know whether you've had any feedback, whether she's heard from. Have you got any feedback about whether she's heard about you? And
I haven't. I did write to Lucy really early on when I understood she was in the northeast. I forgot the name of the prison in the northeast, and then at the new place. But I just, the idea that she would be in prison for the rest of her life, and then her parents could pass away, and then she'd be in. It's so
my biggest fear. My biggest fear was about her parents. If one of them passed away before she had been exonerated, would have been.
Yes, because her dad's 79, I believe, 79, 80 years old.
Yeah, and he could have a heart attack. I mean,
and the stress of it.
The stress is going to be killing him. But I'm assuming if it's kind of a smallish town, maybe they do have some good support. People are saying, "Hey, we get it. We understand. Lucy's a good person. We're here." It's got to be that. If that's that small of a thing, and everyone to some degree knows each other, hopefully they do have some support. But I would imagine financially they got to be ruined.
They were going to sell their. I mean, Wendy will know more about this because they were going to sell their house to go up to the northeast where Lucy was originally going to be, but I think Wendy said earlier that they were no longer where they were living. Yeah.
No, as I understand it, that they are no longer living where they were. So where they are, I. No idea, but
no.
Can I just clarify? I didn't teach Lucy. I was working as a teaching assistant at the school, and I got to just to be like, clear.
No,
I don't
absolutely.
Thinking that I've said something that isn't.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Wendy. No, that's really appreciate that.
But as a teaching assistant, those kids. You see the behind the things.
I actually went on to teach at that school in later years, but I wasn't actually teaching at the time she was there. But no. I mean, it was a school where everybody knew all the kids and parents, and
So, Wendy, sorry to interrupt. So, were you trained as a nurse and then you became a teacher? Is that right? In that order?
I worked as a teaching assistant for a while, after my last child started school, and then I retrained as a teacher. Yeah, so one crazy profession to another.
Can I ask you why you left? Why you left nursing? Was it just the culture?
I actually left nursing because I had a third child, sort of unexpectedly, so to say. Big gap between, and I had bad postnatal depression after I had her, and I just took a few years off work, basically.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, and I'd see nursing for me was wonderful because I could work the part-time, the evenings, the weekends, so I could be home with the kids, and then wouldn't have to do the daycare thing. And plus, I was, as the nurse in the family, you know how that is. You're usually the carer for other extended family members too. So again, I could work the odd hours or the odd things so I could care for family. So nursing has been such a wonderful profession to have, and I always encourage women to do that. If you want to have a career and a family, it helps. You can have it both. So it's kind of sad now, but now you shouldn't do it because you got to protect yourself.
Yeah, you do. I was just thinking about Lucy Letby's, what we've heard anyway. I believe this is true. This is something I've heard, that her desire to go into nursing was because she was her own birth in a way was quite problematic.
Came in a high risk, and her mom was probably older.
Yeah, mum was older, and she wanted to go on and give something back, and she had been told that, and that's how she was repaid. But my friend and I were speaking this afternoon, and my friend has worked in the National Health Service for 30 years before. It's the idea that Lucy Letby she's gone through hell, she's been persecuted. What's going to come out of this? There's got to be some good that comes out of this, because it's so wicked that's happened to her. It's so terrible what has been done to her, but there's got to be something good that comes out of this, that she exposes, and she changes things. This situation changes things in terms of the law,
and the thing is,
in terms of the NHS.
People underestimate how long this has gone on for, because it wasn't just it wasn't just the trial. It was since she was 26. Because it started off with the workplace grievance, and it was going on for years before she got arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm even wondering, because with the Holocaust and World War II, there's I forgot the names of these people. There are people that came out of the Holocaust and became such world renowned, and they show they went through hell, and yet they could show the world and they could articulate it, and people were like, wow, or Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who went through the gulags in Russia. They can show the world what they went through, and make the world a better thing. And she may not want to do that. I mean, she may just need to just disappear for a while, or she could go either way. But either way, we can use her story. And it's sad. People have to go through something so horrible, but that's how we learn. It's how we learned about the Holocaust and the horrors of the gulags in the Soviet Union and everything.
Yes, and there can be a knock-on effect to the cases of Ben Geen, to Colin Norris, to Victorina Chua. There's about 3 other cases that Mark MacDonald has said on record that he believes all those cases are potentially miscarriages of justice. And I just want to pick up what Angel is saying here and relate it back to the conference of today, in which Mark MacDonald, and he says in his inimitable style, when he said very quietly, very, very softly, he said, Lucy has hope. Lucy's got hope now. And I thought that was very touching.
And if you're watching, Lucy, from America, the American nurses love you. From America, Lucy, I hope you get to see this from America.
Well, absolutely, Jenny, because I think there's an energetic element of this, and not everybody is into that stuff, but there's a drive and a feeling towards this wasn't right, and it had to be
She's my sister.
Yeah,
No
it had to be.
sister. Yeah.
Yeah.
My sister.
But you could also tell, you could feel that there was something, and yourself, Wendy, that there's something wrong here.
Isn't the head nurse called a sister as well?
Okay, yeah, but not in America. But
Not
there's
in
a
America.
sisterhood. I meant a sisterhood. Like,
Yeah.
well, but there's some bad nurses. There's a lot of bad nurses too. But a good nurse knows a good nurse, and we're like this. It doesn't matter what country you're in or anything like that. It's like a first responder kind of a good cop knows a good cop no matter where, and that kind of a thing. There is just that bond. And so, that I don't care where she is. We fight for each other. It doesn't matter. You just do it.
Absolutely. I don't know where it comes from.
Can I ask Wendy?
Sorry, go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
Yeah. Because will her parents have support, really, if they're not in Hereford anymore and they're somewhere else anywhere? I mean, you knew them better than anybody.
Well,
the rest of us.
I knew them as school parents, but I mean, I know, but I've no idea. I mean, they obviously, knew other people when they lived in Hereford, but where they are, I mean, it makes you think, doesn't it, that maybe they are trying to be as I mean, wouldn't you want to be anonymous if people thought that she was guilty and that she was your daughter? I mean, people can be so vile, can't they? And
yeah,
I mean, they probably fear for their lives, literally, wouldn't you? Given how vitriolic and
what
crazy.
I find so distressing is that they were
no. So I've no idea, but I've no idea. But I mean, it's horrible to think that they might be in a strange place with not much support network. I don't know.
But wouldn't you think though, Mark McDonald is so, and David Davies is so.
I just thought of them on Christmas Day. I thought, how difficult for them that they're alone again without her.
Yeah. Just.
I just hope. I mean, in the early days of Science on Trial, Sarita Adams, and she seems to have disappeared off the scene, but she did some amazing work, and she was kind of monstered by the Cheshire Police, Sarita Adams, now, to the point that she was threatened with contempt of court, as was Richard Gill. I mean, they actually sent like Dutch police to Richard Gill, and with a letter from Cheshire Police saying that he may be, in contempt of court and may be arrested if he comes to England, So they really went to town on that. I just started that and I can't remember where I was going with it. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, welcome to. I dare them to come to America.
I've just stopped where I was going with that.
Yeah.
I started with something there. Anyway, sorry. Well, I'll have to see if I can come back to it. I think Jonathan's. I'll have to put Jonathan back in. Where's Jonathan gone?
Okay, I'm going to call it because it's been 3 hours now.
Yeah,
it's been 3 hours. Yeah. So should we wrap it up now? And I want to say thank you to everybody who's been in the chat.
Thank you, Mark.
And
thank you.
Thank you,
hey, Mark,
thank you, Jenny.
wonderful.
Thank you all. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Mervyn. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everybody else that has been on, David, and everybody else. And thank you, everybody in the chat and all the comments you've made. I've tried to put up as many as I can. But
go Lucy.
Absolutely. And
go Lucy. Go Lucy.
Well, and it's about the truth, isn't it? It's about. Yeah. And I love that film with Al Pacino, Justice for All, and that's what I want. That's what I'm thinking of. That speech he does, and Justice for All, and that's what we need here. And we need justice for Lucy, and for whomsoever that justice is needed for. So I think we've covered a lot of ground there, and it's fantastic. It's great to meet you all and see you all again. great to meet you as well, Wendy, as well, and to see you for the first time, Jenny, and see you again, Mervyn. But we'll probably, we'll chat soon, and I think it's all moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Good day today. Good day.
Fantastic day today. All the best to everybody.
Cheers.
Good night.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.